Yeah, what's going on, everyone? I don't expect a huge crowd tonight. Normally, I do Firestorm on Saturday nights, but I think I'm going to be quite busy this weekend. So I'm going to go ahead and do it now to see if anybody is available tonight that wants to jump into the conversation. I just dropped a link to join this panel in the chat. As always, you're going to have to reveal yourself before you're able to join in. I have a pretty good idea of who my subscribers are. Make sure when you come in, you hit that like button. And we'll get the conversation started here just in a few moments. If you're here listening now, I appreciate you. I see a couple people in here so far. I know that we have Blue Blood and a few others that are going live at the moment. It's just hard for me to squeeze in a window to try and talk about these type of conversations. Like I said, normally, I go live on Saturday nights for Firestorm, but I'm going to have to do it tonight. Mangus Allen, what's good, man? Thanks for dropping by tonight. I'm just going to hold the stream here just for a few moments to let everybody get their notifications, and hopefully we get a decent crowd coming in here to join the conversation. If you're just joining and you want to jump in to leave your thoughts, this is Firestorm. This is when I do open panels. The link is in the chat. Click that link and you can come in, and I'll be more than happy to bring you on as a guest to give me your prediction or give me your thoughts. We're going to talk about pretty much all the major fights that are coming up towards the end of the year. You see the title of the live stream. Going to talk a little bit about the one that's coming up this weekend, Herring versus Stevenson. I've already dropped an official prediction / breakdown on that fight. So if you want to catch that, it's on my channel, 10-minute video. But I'll talk a little bit about it here just for the sake of the conversation. I'll talk about Plant and Canelo. I'll talk about Porter and Crawford, and I may touch on, if we have enough time tonight, touch on Tank Davis and Romero. It really does depend on what people really want to talk about, on how I conduct this live stream. See Stormy B-Man in the building. Stormy, if you're not too tired from your live stream, feel free to go ahead and click that link and jump in the conversation if you want. Like I said, I know there's a couple channels going live at the moment. Blue Blood being one of them. So I'm not expecting a huge crowd tonight. But I do want to get this video out because, like I said, I'm not going to be available this Saturday. At least, I don't think I will be. So I want to go ahead and get this live stream out now. I might squeeze some time in on Saturday and do a rerun. But like I said, for the sake of this conversation, those who are joining right now and those who are available, I'll head and give you guys my thoughts on these big fights. So let's go ahead and start it off with, I'm going to go ahead and start the conversation off with Herring Stevenson. All right, so like I said, I've already made an official prediction of this fight. And it took me quite a while to really come to a confident prediction on this one. This is a tough fight to predict. You know, you got the veteran, you get the guy that doesn't necessarily have an absolutely amazing professional record, but the dude knows his way around the ring. And I'm talking about Herring. Omega Red was good. I think that he perhaps is underestimated by a fair amount of people. But I believe that, you know, he is bringing some real talent to this fight. So we have Herring, of course, and we have Stevenson, a guy that, if anybody can beat Herring right now, it's Stevenson, in my opinion. Young, exuberant, distinguished amateur background, silver medalist in the Olympics, quick hands, fast movement, got the youth advantage, and he's got some pop to his punches. So, you know, it's a very, very intriguing fight. And quite honestly, I don't know why more people aren't talking about this fight. It blows my mind. And I understand this fight got overshadowed with all of the craziness and the chaos of Fury and Wilder, the trilogy fight. I also don't think the fight itself was promoted very well. I think the promotional side of things were lacking. But it's unfortunate because this is a really good fight, man. This is a really good fight to talk about. Stylistically, the stories of the two gentlemen that will be facing off this weekend, I mean, everything about it is a great fight. Those of you who are just joining, I appreciate you. Feel free to click the link in the chat here if you want to jump in and talk about this. You're more than welcome. Yeah, Stormy, I hear you, man. I heard you say that in your live stream. Rest up, get some ice on it, and let us know how that x-ray goes. Andrew Charles was good. Yeah, I like this matchup a lot too. I really do. So, for those of you who haven't seen my official prediction video yet, and I highly recommend you do that, you know, because I do take a lot of pride in those prediction videos. And I hate to take away from those uploads that I do and then kind of spoil it in live streams, to be quite honest with you. But look, man, I just feel like watching Herring's fight, and he's had trouble with southpaws. And I made the point in my upload that when you are talking about two southpaws going head to head, it's very interesting because southpaws don't face off against each other very often. Right? Southpaws get used to fighting orthodox fighters. Orthodox fighters get used to fighting orthodox fighters. And even if it's, you know, orthodox versus southpaw, you know, it happens more often than what two southpaws happen. It's very rare, especially at the championship level. So that's one of the biggest things that really stood out to me when breaking down footage of these two fighters and trying to find out, okay, who am I going to pick in this fight? Record, but that second loss was against a southpaw who, quite frankly, is not the caliber of Shakur Stevenson. Now, yes, he's improved since then, for sure. But he hasn't fought another southpaw since then either. He hasn't beaten, to my understanding, last time I checked, he hasn't beaten another southpaw since he lost to a southpaw. Now, I understand the whole like, hey, he's a Marine and he's tough and he's a dog, and I am not pushing that to the side whatsoever. I fully acknowledge and understand, what type of cloth that he's cut from. I'm a veteran myself, and I do hold that up to high regard. But this is boxing, man. And, I have to look at it critically. Stevenson has also fought a southpaw not nearly as long ago as what Herring faced a southpaw, and he won that fight. Sometimes boxing, man, and I hate to say it, sometimes boxing, it comes down to youth versus experience, and the experienced guy, experience is very valuable. You can beat a young, worthy contender who is on the rise, glory at their fingertips, and all that. But you're always at risk, right? Because of your age, because of the wear and tear on your body, because sometimes your pride gets the best of you and you try to mix it up with the younger, stronger fighter. This fight goes into the championship rounds and Herring decides to mix it up with a guy who's 11 years younger. Sometimes that can play against you. Some examples that I think of, Floyd Mayweather, for example, accomplished quite a lot in his career in his mid-30s, right? 34, 35, 36, 37. But he's not normal. You know what I mean? He's simply just not normal. Now, y'all can let me know what you think of in regards to that. Now, can he pull it off? 35 years old. Of course he can. But the critical point here is that when you're experienced and you no longer have youth on your side, you can't make mistakes, right? Your game plan has to be on point. You have to know how to reserve your energy. You're going to have the mental edge. You have to make it about chess, not checkers. You have to use experience to your advantage. That's what it's all about. So, if he loses the game plan in this fight, Herring that is, I feel like if he loses the game plan, he's in big trouble. If he gets caught up in emotion, he gets caught up in trying to mix it up with this dude because pride, pride steps in or whatever have you. I feel like it can be a real big issue. So for Stevenson, I just feel like young, determined, and he has tools to beat a guy like Herring. You know what I mean? And, when I look at a guy, okay, who can beat Herring? I don't really see a guy that is a counterpuncher like Herring, that is also the similar age as Herring, a guy that's going to try to outbox Herring. I don't think that type of guy doesn't have a chance to beat Herring. But the type of guy that has a chance to beat Herring is the guy that has hand speed, that can use and utilize in and out movement, is difficult to hit, and very elusive, and defensively pretty sound. He's got a very good, boxing pedigree. And so those are the type of tools that can beat a guy like Herring, and I feel like he has those tools. He will be tested, though, however. I believe he will be tested. I believe that he will have to dig deep in this fight, and I do believe that it'll be a 12-round fight. And then we go 12. I got a unanimous decision for Stevenson. Like I said, I've already made a prediction video about this fight. Y'all can jump to my channel and check it out if you want a little bit more detail. I did break it down more in depth in that upload, 10-minute video. You can drop your official prediction there, or you can drop it here, whatever you feel like. But those are my thoughts about this fight coming up this weekend. I'm looking forward to watching it. I'm rooting for Stevenson. I'm rooting for Herring. My apologies. I'm rooting for Herring. I like his story. I like what he represents. I would love to see him win. You know, I'd like to see the older guy, the experienced guy, kind of put the younger dude in his place. You know what I mean? That's something that I would love seeing. So I am going for Herring. However, my prediction is Stevenson in 12 rounds, a 12-round decision. So that is my official prediction. And we'll see if I have to eat crow or not coming up here in a few days. Just give me a moment here, guys. I have to reset something. All right, I think we're back. I had to restart my internet there. It was starting to lag a little bit. Jerome, what's good, man? He says, rooting for Shakur because he's from my city, but I can't really call it. DP Rocker, what's good? Yeah, it's a very difficult fight to call, man, to be honest with you. Very, very difficult fight to call. But at the end of the day, you got to choose someone. Well, maybe people who are just fans and watch, maybe you don't have to, but when you're a content creator like myself, you got to make a choice. So my choice is Stevenson, and I'm going to have to stick to it. I can't backpedal now. Hopefully he pulls it off for the sake of my prediction. But I wouldn't feel any kind of way if Herring was able to pull it off, man, because, like I said, I like Herring's story. I like who he is and what he represents. And being the older, experienced fighter, I always like those types of performances by the more experienced fighters and humble the younger fighter a little bit. Wouldn't bother me one bit if he pulled it off. But again, my prediction is Stevenson. So really, I win either way. It's a win-win situation for me. Stevenson wins, I get my prediction right. Herring wins, I feel good about it for the fact that, you know, like I said, I like his story and whatnot. Big Dog Willie in the building. What's good, man? Thanks for dropping by. Right, so those are my thoughts about that fight. If anybody else has any extra thoughts about this fight's coming up this weekend, man. And I will be here post-fight, like I always am, let you guys know how I thought the fight went down. And make sure you guys don't miss that post-fight. Thought you guys know how I get down on the post-fight. It's always lit in here. So I'm going to go ahead and keep it moving. For those joining in and want to be a part of the conversation, I'll go ahead and drop the link in the chat one more time. It is an open panel tonight. So if you would like to jump in and join, you're more than welcome to. We can have a conversation. But I'm going to switch gears now and move on to the next fight. And that is... yeah, you guessed it. Canelo versus Plant. So this is, man, this is a fight that I haven't made an official prediction about yet, because this is a really, really, really big fight to me. This is like one fight under Fury Wilder for me personally. Some people may not agree. Some people, I don't know, maybe they think that Canelo is going to win this fight easily. I don't know, but as a boxing fan, this is like the next big fight for me. Porter, Crawford's a big fight, and all these other fights that are coming up. Those are big fights. But this is the second biggest fight for me personally. Canelo versus Plant. And the reason is because it's Canelo. You know what I mean? And I've always been critical of Canelo in his career and the things that he's done. And Plant, a guy that's essentially for a lot of people is really coming out of nowhere to challenge the champ. And also because it's for the undisputed super middleweight championship of the world. Like, how could that not be a big fight? Anytime you have a chance for undisputed, it should be huge. It should be talked about. People should be going crazy about it right now as boxing fans. Now, obviously, with the press conference, being what it was, there's some extra stuff sprinkled on top of this fight with Canelo, being, well, not really accused because he did pop on PEDs, but the fact that Plant brought it to the forefront and in the spotlight. And so there's some animosity, I think, that's going to be presented in this fight as well. So there's just a lot to it that I appreciate. You know what I mean? So that's just how I see it, and like I said, I'm really looking forward to it. Now, as far as the fight itself, like I said, I have an official prediction video planned. Hopefully, my man Brian comes through tonight. We're going to do some filming because I want to make the prediction an epic one. And so that one is more along the lines of me breaking it down stylistically. But since I'm here talking about it, I'll go ahead and let you guys know my thoughts. Look, this is not an easy fight for Caleb Plant on a lot of levels. Hate him or love him, it is what it is. This is not an easy fight. Okay, for the obvious reason, because he is who he is, and he happens to get decisions that go his way, even though he may have not deserved it. So that's one problem that Caleb Plant has to face. And I found it interesting when Caleb Plant was interviewed not too long ago. And somebody asked him in an interview, I can't remember what it was Fight Hype or Fight Hub. And they actually brought it to his attention. They said, "Hey man, are you worried about the judges, not calling it in your favor, even though you feel like you won the fight?" And he actually said, "Nah, like, I ain't worried about it. The judges are going to do their job. I trust the judges, and I'm going to beat them convincingly, so it don't matter." And for me, I was like, okay, like, I appreciate the confidence, but it's like, I don't really believe that. I don't really believe what he's saying 100%. If he's going to criticize fighters for using PEDs in the sport of boxing, he's well aware of corrupt judges in boxing as well. For him to act like, oh, it's not a big deal, I think he's trying to be politically correct, and I think that he's well aware of the possibility of boxing very well and the fight going 12 rounds and him not getting the nod. I think he's well aware of that. And I've been telling people here on YouTube and in real life that for Plant to win this fight, he has to box masterfully for 12 rounds. He basically has to put on another Mayweather performance. And even in that fight against the pay-per-view king at that time, Mayweather, one judge scored a draw. You know what I'm saying? This is the shit that I'm talking about. This is Caleb Plant. For a lot of people, he's a nobody. He's just another guy to check off the list for Canelo Alvarez. What would help Plant what would help him immensely in this fight is if somehow he's able to drop Canelo. If he's able to drop him and get that 2-point advantage, that'll help his cause. I don't think that's the game plan. I think the game plan, him and his team, and I understand that Andre Ward is in the corner working with them. I understand that the game plan essentially is to outbox him, to move, to be elusive, work behind the jab, and force Canelo to try and walk me down and cut off the ring. I feel like that's going to be the game plan. For Canelo is Canelo. You know, I think that he wants to prove a point in this fight, and that is that a guy like Plant is not on his level, and I feel like he's coming in to try and hurt Plant. This isn't like we're gonna have a boxing match. I'm gonna hurt you. I'm gonna stop you. I see that and I feel that in his training, the way that he's training for this fight. He's working a lot on power, working a lot on going to the body, which, yeah, sure, you know, you're going up against a guy that moves and boxes. You want to go to the body. The head moves, the body doesn't. So, you know, that makes sense. You know, but this is why this fight's very intriguing, because you look at Canelo, it's like, you know that he's always had problems against boxer movers. A lot of people as well are comparing this fight to Billy Joe Saunders. I think they're different fighters. There's some similarities, but I think they're different fighters. Billy Joe did okay in the beginning of that fight. He fell apart, took some big shots. Obviously, his eye was busted up. He took some ruthless body shots, and he slowly started to wither away. You know, Caleb, to this point in his career, he's been shown that he can get hit. And a lot of times when Caleb has been hit against, quite frankly, lesser competition than Canelo. But normally when he gets hit, it's because he for whatever reason, he sits down on his punches and he just starts exchanging. He doesn't get hit when he's moving and boxing very often. It's very difficult to hit. And he's very good at hitting and not getting hit. But sometimes he has this thing in him where it's like, all right, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to throw some punches, and, oh, you may hit me with a couple good ones. Not a good idea against Canelo. And that's exactly what I'm saying. Like, he's got to box masterfully for 12 rounds. He has to fight round by round. There is no, let me get to the 7th round and see what happens. This fight should be win round 1, win round 2, win round 3, win every single round by boxing until the 12th round. There's none of this, oh, I'm going to wait until the 7th round, and if I feel like he's tired, I'm going to exchange with him. There's no need for that unless he's like seriously hurt. There's no guessing here. You know, Canelo wants you, and Canelo has that in his repertoire, right? He likes to set traps. And that's exactly what he did to Amir Khan. Amir Khan was feeling good, was boxing good, was, you know, landing good shots and moving. And Canelo was, you know, he paces himself, and every once in a while he'll throw a big left hook to the body or big left hook to the face, or, you know, he'll move in with the jab a little bit. But he makes you think that you got the upper hand. He waits for you to sit down, and he just steps into you and loops something over the top. And that's exactly what happened to Amir Khan. Put his ass to sleep. So you can't fall for that trap. You got to win every round. That is your goal if you're Caleb Plant. And that is just my opinion. Like, I understand he doesn't like Canelo. I understand that he may think that he has power. He may think that he can stop Canelo. He can be that guy. I don't think he's that guy to stop him. He's that guy to outbox him and put a beautiful performance on, outboxing Canelo. But he's not that guy. You know, he's not that guy. I would be absolutely shocked if he's able to stop Canelo. I would do backflips, like live on YouTube, in my small little trophy room here. Like seriously, I just don't see that happening. It's either going to be a boxing masterclass by Caleb Plant. He surprises everyone, or Canelo's going to find a way to walk him down, cut off the ring. The body shots will start piling up, and I can see Caleb getting cut, like similar to Billy Joe, somehow being injured, not being able to see, not being able to move like he wanted to move, and I see Canelo getting a late stoppage. That's the only two ways that I see this fight happening. So that's just my opinion, I guess, in a nutshell. I have like I said, I have an official video that I plan to upload and drop here where it's more pointing towards the stylistic point of view of this fight. But for the sake of this this quiet and relaxing live stream, I'll just go ahead and give you guys my thoughts. Bible English says Plant will not be able to survive Canelo's power. No trading in this fight or it will be over quickly. Yeah, he definitely does not need to trade. I agree. Better be able to take a shot and not gas. Everyone digs a Cinderella story. Yeah. Jay Smooth, what's good, man? He says, yeah, Caleb got outboxing for 12. For all 12. I think he can do it. Canelo has power, yeah, but everybody's chin is not the same. He shouldn't like him, but he will respect him. Yeah. I mean, if somebody was like, all right, you know, you got to bet money, who has a better chance of knocking the other out? Obviously, I'm going to go for Canelo. I'm going to say Canelo has the much better chance to knock out Plant. If I have to bet if someone was going to win a 12-round decision, I would go for Plant. I don't think Canelo is planning to go 12. I don't think he wants to go 12. I don't think that he thinks that he needs to go 12. If it does manage to go to 12, I mean, the likelihood is that Plant's he's gonna win by decision. I just don't see Canelo imposing himself or doing something that makes him uncomfortable to try and outbox the boxer. Canelo is a boxer puncher, and Plant is a pure boxer. So there's no point of let me bounce on my toes and try to outbox a guy who's longer than me and taller than me and is pretty hard to hit. You got to stick to what you're good at, which is seek and destroy, go to the body, cut off the ring, and beat him up. Hit him with big power shots. That's what you do. And if Canelo's not able to do that, Caleb Plant wins this fight. Period. That's just the way that I see it. Rafael, what's good, man? He says, Plant has the skill, but maybe not the stamina. Well, I mean, you can say that about Canelo, too, though. Yeah, I mean, exactly. You can say that about Canelo, too. He's been known to gas out late in fights. He's gotten better over the years. But well, this is a super middleweight division. These are not lightweights, right? These are not bantamweights. These are not flyweights. These guys go, they're punching for the moon for 12 rounds. I mean, super middle. Once you get up to 160, when you get up into the middleweights, stamina does play a role in a fight. Okay, it increases like worse. It becomes more of a factor when you get into the super middle, light heavy, cruiser, and of course heavyweights, right? But these guys, you have to understand, yeah, the guys that fight at 160, 168, they're walking around like light heavyweights. They're walking around at 170, 175. They make weight for 168, and I know this for a fact because that is the weight that I'm at. And if I were to fight, I would have to trim down to probably 168. I'm probably walking around now about 175, 176. So I know. And I know that at 175, 76 pounds, having to cut down to 168, I'm not going to have the same stamina as like I did when I was a teenager boxing and I was 135 pounds. 135, 140 pounds when I was in high school. I was a small dude in high school until, maybe going into my senior year, I started lifting weights and started putting on muscle. But the stamina is just not the same. So any super middleweight can be affected by stamina. It's not as early as like heavyweights. Heavyweights, guys get gassed out in fucking 3 or 4 rounds. Super middleweights, I'd say fatigue starts hitting you around 7, 8. And then you have to adapt, You got to have the right game plan. Now that is my concern. See, there's two ways that you can get burned out in a fight. And that is, the first way is the mover, right? When you move a lot, like Caleb Plant, your leg endurance has to be tip top, right? You gotta put running in there. You gotta put like running uphill, downhill, running backwards, plyometrics, lateral. I mean, you just gotta destroy your legs to get those legs in shape to move constantly for 12 rounds. Mayweather has always moved later in his career, right? But we know that he would run, 5 to 10 miles every day, right? His legs were always in impeccable shape to be able to do what he needs to do based off his style to last, right? So it's no different. It's really no different when it comes to Caleb Plant. Dorian Sims, good, man. Thanks for dropping by. Jave, what's good, bro? Thank you for coming by tonight. So that's the first way you can burn out, is if you're a mover and your legs are not conditioned, you're expending a lot of energy compared to the more relaxed, coming forward fighter, just using head movements, it's easier to stay composed. When you have more of a boxing style, and you're going back and forward, back, jab, 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 in, out, using constant head movement. You're using your core all the time, leaning forward, leaning back, sliding to the side. You're expending a lot of energy, even for 168-pound fighters. I just explained to you that these guys walk around at 175. These are not small dudes. Okay? The other way you can run out of stamina quickly is the opposite, which would be more so along the lines of Canelo Alvarez, which is throwing big power shots and missing. Every boxing coach will tell you it takes more energy to swing and miss than it is to swing and hit. Right? One thing that we saw happen to Wilder in the Fury fight was the fact that he was putting so much energy behind pretty much every punch, even his jab. Even Wilder's jab, he was trying to punch through Fury. Because in his mind, he's thinking, I ain't trying to be here all night. I'm going to get this guy out less than 5. Right? And it's like his tank was built for 5 rounds in that fight. Now, I'm not trying to make a comparison to Canelo and Wilder per se. But what I'm trying to say is that if Canelo's mindset is, I don't respect this guy, Wilder didn't respect Fury enough. And that's exactly what happened. He thought he's going to come in big, strong, and just hurt Fury early, right? And that's why when we got into the later rounds, Wilder was gassed out. He put all of his power, he put all of his chips on the table. He went all in. Basically the first round, he's all in. Coming out, attacking the body, jabbing real hard, big right hand to the body. And he didn't wait long to start throwing at the head, try to knock him out. So when you swinging and missing, it takes a lot out of you. And Wilder started to swing and miss at Fury. Fury started using head movement, ducking underneath the shots, and all that stuff just started burning him out. So my point is that if Canelo comes in there with that type of mindset where he doesn't respect Caleb Plant, and all he's trying to do is throw big power shots, and Plant is moving beautifully and slipping and deflecting and parrying these shots and counterpunching, Canelo's going to gas out. If he's developing his tank to fight 5-6 rounds, or let's say, super middleweights, I say he can prepare a tank for about 7-8 rounds, in the super middle. Just work on nothing but power. Just train power. But you're not training for stamina. You're not training for endurance. You're training power. Power can only last so long. Yeah. The best comparison that I can make is, let's put it this way: a functional training athlete versus a CrossFit athlete. Okay. A functional training athlete trains on functional movements, hit training, 45 on, 15 off, but they do that shit for 45 minutes nonstop, right? CrossFit athletes, they do like 15, 20-minute workouts, but they have really high intensity, right? They do Olympic movements. You know what I mean? They're doing cleans, power cleans, clean and jerk, heavy, super heavy deadlifts, snatch, doing all kind of crazy gymnastic work. But they condense everything. They condense that capacity and that volume and that intensity in 20 minutes. 15 to 20 minutes is an average CrossFit workout. So you're going to develop power. You're going to develop a tank to deal with that type of intensity within that time frame. You can be explosive. You can be powerful. But once you hit that 20-minute mark, you've emptied the tank. You are done. You put everything you can put into your 335-pound deadlifts and your 225-pound snatches. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're done. Whereas a functional training athlete doesn't have that same power. But if you put them head-to-head to do a 45-minute workout, the functional training athlete is probably going to win 7 out of 10 times because they have conditioned their body to use functional movement, and they have trained their body for endurance and stamina. That is the type of comparison that I can make. So when I talk about, okay, look, you have Canelo's training. To me, it looks like he's training for power. When I look at his training footage, it looks like Canelo is training for power. He's coming in with no respect. I don't think he respects Caleb. I really don't. And I think that could play against him. I think he's coming in thinking, I bitch slapped his ass during the press conference, and I've dealt with guys like Caleb enough now. I'm a better fighter. I'm too strong. He's not on my level. And he's going to go in there, and he might give away the first 2 rounds, but after that, he's going to start trying to hurt Plant. And if you can't hurt him, he's going to be in trouble. If Plant's in good shape, and if Plant doesn't get tired, and he can't hurt Plant, that's an issue. That's going to be an issue. I got my man Krod in the building. What's good, bro?
Hey, what's up, Divine? Salute to you.
Yeah, man. You caught it in a good time, man.
Yeah. I just wanted to come in here for a little bit and just talk my piece, and then I'll dip out.
Yes, sir.
So, yeah.
You want to talk about this fight?
Yeah. I just wanted to, bring my final prediction thoughts on Canelo versus Plant.
Yeah, go ahead and leave your thoughts, brother.
All right. I personally think Canelo is in for a bad style matchup. I think Caleb Plant is just too slick and elusive to the point where Canelo, he's just never wanted to face that type of style all his career. Like I said in previous live streams, I just think Canelo, he's only good for the style that you see him good up against, and that style is just a come forward style. We've never seen Canelo do well against guys that have pure boxing like boxing ability that actually makes him think more in the fight to make better adjustments. And those fights that I could use as proper examples where Canelo struggles with pure boxers would be guys like Austin Trout, Erislandy Lara, Floyd Mayweather, maybe in certain cases with Billy Joe Saunders, but guys that had given Canelo those problems, Canelo never faced those type of fighters. And on top of that, when it comes to southpaws, Canelo, he's afraid of southpaws. He cannot make those proper adjustments when he ever faces a southpaw. So even from an orthodox angle, the only way Canelo really does well against orthodox fighters is with guys that just come forward and just stand right in front of him. Otherwise, if Canelo had these great ring IQ tactics to make those proper adjustments to cut off the ring and beat guys that are movers or basically just slick counter punchers, then we would have seen that already. But it just comes to show you that Canelo, he's not built for that, and he's never made any proper improvements throughout his whole entire career to be that type of fighter, to break people down that have a difficult style for him to puzzle together. So with Caleb Plant, I just personally think he just presents up the same issues that Canelo never wanted to face in the first place. And I think if Caleb Plant, if he pulls it off correctly and boxes smart, then I think Canelo, he's just in for a very bad night.
Yeah, let me play devil's advocate just for a moment before you head out of here. So I see a lot of people bringing up Trout and Lara and Mayweather and other guys that he's fought. I get that. I get it. And I would agree that if you were to put up a style against Canelo, it's a boxing style. I 100% agree. Where I would push back a little bit would be, I do believe he has improved since those fights. I believe that he has improved immensely after the Mayweather fight. He got his ass whooped by Mayweather. Like, let's not mince words here. He got his ass schooled. And I guarantee you he learned a lot from that. And it didn't take long after that fight where you can see it very quickly on the adjustments that he made after fighting Mayweather. One of those adjustments was what I was just saying, where he reserved his energy a bit better. He didn't waste as many punches. He wasted a lot of punches on Mayweather. He couldn't hit him. He couldn't hit Mayweather, and I feel like that's something he learned, is that I gotta be a little bit more balanced, a little bit more conservative. So the thing is that somebody mentioned in the chat here about Jacobs. That was a great fight. And I was going for Jacobs in that fight, and Canelo proved me wrong. Canelo dug deep and he got the job done, even when Jacobs had some moments. See, the thing about Canelo is almost every fighter that he's fought has had their moments against him. It's not like he's outclassing people. It's not like he's in control of the entire fight and then finally gets rid of them or takes them out. I mean, you look back at the Triple G fights. We know that was a war. You look at the Miguel Cotto fight. That was a battle. You look at Lara. He lost to Mayweather, but even Daniel Jacobs. These guys he fought had moments against him. He can be beat. I guarantee you he can be beat. And you can't just be fixated on, Mayweather. There's nobody else like Mayweather, so I'm not worried. It's not just Mayweather. It is a lot. There's other fighters that has went up against him that has had success, right? And he has been able to squeeze out victories or swing the fight back in his favor because maybe he goes to the body a little bit better or he has a little bit more power. Here's the thing. I'm not going to say that Canelo doesn't have power, but Canelo, it's not like he came up and was a middleweight his whole career, and now he's fighting at light heavy. This guy moved up, right? He's moved up. Yeah, he has developed into this new weight class, sure, but he's fighting Caleb Plant, to my knowledge, has always been a 168er. He is a true super middle who walks around at 175 plus. I promise you that. So it's not just power, right? It's like saying Fury doesn't have power. No, he doesn't have power, but the dude is 7 foot tall and almost 300 pounds. You don't need, you have size. You understand what I'm saying? So Plant has size. He's not going up. This isn't like a catch weight where both guys are moving up and trying to fight for a vacant title. This is for the undisputed super middleweight title, and Caleb Plant is a true super middleweight. So where I wanted to push back a little bit was I feel like Canelo has improved, and if he has the right mindset and the right game plan, and he sticks to that game plan, and he's able to cut off the ring and go to Caleb Plant's body, sure, he can win this fight, just like or he can do just enough to at least get the judge's favor, because he's Canelo Alvarez, right? He's a cash cow. But my thing is that I feel the more I talk about this fight and the more I think about this fight, I don't think, and Krod, I'll give you an opportunity to have a rebuttal, but I don't think that he respects Plant. I really don't. I think that he thinks Plant is not on his level. I think that Plant, he doesn't respect Plant's power. He doesn't think Plant has power to hurt him. But I don't think Plant doesn't need power. He doesn't need knockout power for Canelo to respect him. He needs crisp, accurate punches. Mayweather doesn't have power, right? Mayweather doesn't have power, but Canelo respected Mayweather because he kept getting pieced up, kept getting tagged. So it's not about power. You got a real 168-pounder punching you in the face, and you can't hit him. It's not just power that hurts you. It's frustration, right? You start getting away from your game plan. You start throwing big haymakers. You start, trying to do roughhouse tactics. And that's when Caleb Plant knows he's got you. So it's not just power. I mean, Sergio Mora is another example. That guy never really had power. But he just outboxed people. I believe Sergio Mora had a very low KO ratio. But he won big fights. So it's not about power. It's not about, he can't hurt me, so it doesn't matter. If he doesn't hurt you, that doesn't matter. The fact is he's punching you, and you can't punch him. So, Canelo's footwork is going to have to be on point in this fight to chase down a guy who has built his entire career on moving and boxing and not being hit. So those are just my kind of like whirlwind of thoughts there. But Krod, go ahead and if there's anything on your mind.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't have a lot to disagree because, I mean, Canelo, to me, I don't think he's a true super middleweight because, remind you, he only started his career at 147, and then he just hyper ballooned to 154, and then 160, and then 168. But then remind you, a good number of his fights he fought at a catch weight. So it's like, how does Canelo manage all this weight and density on his body when you know that his legs are just not, I guess, at the same with his upper body strength? Because it's like, when Canelo got exposed for the drug cheating against Triple G in the second fight, you can easily tell that the needle marks on his abs leading to his core clearly show that he was taking the clenbuterol shots, and ever since
what
then.
What fight was this? Sorry, what fight was this before?
That was a Triple G rematch.
Okay.
I think he got suspended for 6 months, and then leading up to the second fight, that's when Canelo got off of that suspension, and then he fought Triple G, I think.
So, Krod, let me ask you a question. So you're saying that there was evidence of him taking some type of enhancing drug after the rematch with Triple G, right?
No. Leading up to it. Leading up to it. Leading up to it.
Now, I wasn't on YouTube yet at that point. I was still cruising around doing my thing, and I wasn't making videos yet. So remind me and remind the people, why wasn't the rematch canceled? And why wasn't that, if it wasn't canceled, Canelo ends up winning? Why did he end up still be claimed the victor? How did all that play out, and why?
Because the WBC through Mauricio Suleiman gave Canelo that I guess plea deal, as far as like I guess like raising the computer levels up. And I guess like when he was clean, they basically allow computer to be increased to the point where once you've already met like I guess at the standard to not have a certain amount go over the projected limit, you could technically still be on it coming into your fight. So I would assume that Canelo, he just accepted the 6 month suspension, and then when the WBC cleared him off, along with this Nevada State Athletic Commission, or wherever commission that he got cleared from, he was able to have his way to be given all these I guess like little slap on the wrist type deals, right? To have his way.
Okay, so what was didn't Canelo say that he ate some type of meat that had it in or something like that? Was that his excuse? I don't remember.
Yeah, that was like the little made up excuse that he said, like, oh, it could have been some form of like cow meat that he ate, but that's obviously not true, because computer can be can be found within cows, but it's like he should have known twice about eating that type of meat when he wanted to take it, because it's like the only way that you really know that you have computer being tainted within the meat is that you're having to eat I guess the cow balls. But it's like I wouldn't think for like a second that Canelo would want to do that. But either way, it's like that should be his own responsibility to know what he's putting inside of his body. So therefore, why didn't him and Eddie Reynoso had hired like a proper nutritionist to make sure that he wasn't cheating in the first place? And then on top of that, why did Eddie Reynoso's other fighters like Julio Cesar Martinez, Luis Neri, all the other fighters that have been caught for steroids, why didn't those people get put on the spot for being held accountable when they got caught for cheating? But for some reason,
it sounds a lot like Valdez.
Yeah, pretty much. That's pretty much not the point that I'm basically getting to. It's a double standard.
We got Rafael Velasco. He says, Plant the toughest fight since Floyd for Canelo. I appreciate the super chat, man. Yeah, well, yeah, I would say yeah, because that is Canelo's nemesis, is a boxer mover. Triple G was a tough fight. Cotto was a tough fight as well. Triple G was tough because Triple G could match him with power. That's why that fight was intriguing, because it was like, oh, either one of these guys can knock each other out. People were excited about it. But I think it's more of a difficult fight for him because, yes, he's fighting a guy who is true to the weight class, who has built a career on outboxing people. So, this is why this fight can sell. You can sell Triple G and Canelo because, Triple G is Triple G and, they both have power. But you can sell Canelo Plant all day, every day, because styles make fights. So, yeah, I would say this is going to be a tough challenge. And it may be a situation where Plant is boxing beautifully, and then 9th round, boom, Canelo hits him, and it's all over. That's possible too. But, it's just one of those things, man, where my biggest thing is if you're going for Plant, especially if you're going to put money on Plant, you are literally putting your money on the fact that you think he's going to outbox Canelo for 12 rounds. That's what you're putting your money on. And put aside the fact that the judges are probably going to be more favorable towards Canelo anyways. They're going to say, oh, well, Plant was running. I can hear that shit already. Plant was running. And Canelo was trying to push the fight. He was trying to press the fight. And so that's where they're going to make their quote-unquote excuses for giving Canelo rounds that he didn't deserve. It's no different than what happened in the Mayweather fight. That's what they tried to say. Oh, well, yeah, Mayweather was looking good, but, he wasn't really punching that much. Oh, you mean the 20 times that he punched Canelo in the face and then Canelo hit him like 0? You mean those times? That's what we're talking about? But I can hear that, too.
Canelo was too easy.
Yeah. Arturo says, Canelo knows he hasn't been to the trenches nor tested. Canelo took the hair follicle test. Saying that Plant hasn't been in the trenches, I think, is a bit unfair. If you want to say that he hasn't been in the trenches against, like, a caliber of Canelo, I guess you can make that argument. But I think that, I just feel like Plant is just a little bit, I think he's just pushed to the side, man. And I get it because, he's to a lot of people, he's an unknown dude. He's not a Triple G. He's a guy that, okay, he's a champ, but how did he win the belt? He hasn't really fought anybody. And Plant said it himself at the press conference, right? He said everybody has underestimated me in my entire career. So he's got that in his pockets. Plant does. He has it stuffed in his pockets right now, and he's ready to pull out that I guess that resentment that people have had against him. So like I said earlier, if you guys just joined, this fight right here is like it's like second to Fury Wilder for me. This fight is bigger than Porter Crawford for me. And a lot of people are like, what? Nah, man, Porter Crawford, man, that's the fight. Everybody's different. For me, this is the fight right here. This is the fight. This is for undisputed. Anytime you go for undisputed, like, it's history in the making. Number one. And number two, I like the competitive juices. I like the beef, man. I like the beef in this fight. Porter and Crawford, they ain't got no beef. They're just two guys, trying to prove that who's better or whatever the case may be, and who's gonna go fight Earl Spence. It's good for boxing. I love it. I'm gonna watch the fight. Don't get me wrong. But this is like, these two guys don't like each other, and it's like Fury Wilder. A lot of people watch Fury Wilder because they couldn't stand each other. A lot of people don't even watch boxing. They watch that fight because they hear the rumblings, right? And in a way, again, look, check this out. You had UK versus US with Fury Wilder. Now you got US and Mexico. So anytime you got two countries going head-to-head, and they don't like each other on top of that, and you're fighting for undisputed, this is a huge fight. This is a very huge fight. And that's why I have not jumped in the cart before the horse to drop my official prediction video yet. So I want to make it. I want to make it nice. You know what I mean? I want to make sure that when I drop it and then I'm right, I have something beautiful to go back to. You know what I mean? And so that's just the way I feel about it. I see a lot of people are going in the chat talking about Floyd and yeah. Look, Floyd was what? How many years ago? Like, how many years ago was Floyd? 10?
8.
8. Okay, 8 years ago. I mean, that's quite a while ago. And Canelo's probably had, I don't know, 7, 8, at least 7 or 8 fights since then. He's improved. He's definitely improved. My thing is like I said earlier, is that if Canelo's focus and disciplines and sticks to his game plan, doesn't gas out, doesn't waste punches, he probably wins this fight. But my problem is that I just think that I don't think he respects Plant, man, in a bad way, not in a good way, not like a confidence way, but in a bad way. I feel like he's like, you know what, man, this guy ain't shit. He's gonna come out there and move around and box for a little bit. I'm gonna time him. I'm gonna range him. Find my range finding jab to the body a little bit. He can hit me with his little, feather fist. It's not gonna hurt me. and then I'm going to put my foot on the gas in the third, fourth round. I'm going to knock this dude out. That's how I feel like he's going to approach this fight. And like I said, if that strategy doesn't work, those little feather fists that you think that he has, that shit's going to add up. And I think that Canelo is full of pride, right? He's full of ego. He has a tendency to miss shots and gas himself out. And I think that he thought that he was going to knock out Mayweather, too. You guys remember Oscar De La Hoya chirping in his ear? Like, yeah, you're going to be the one, Canelo. You're going to be the one to knock him out. I got close to it, but you're going to be the one. You're the golden boy now. That shit got in Canelo's head, and you can tell he went in that fight thinking he's gonna try to set a trap on Mayweather and knock out Mayweather. Come on, man. Now, Plant is not Mayweather, but he can fall into that same trap that he did fall against Mayweather, though. And this isn't 100 and whatever the fuck they fought at, 152 catch weight with Floyd. This is 168, people. 168. So all this talk about Plant don't have no power, I don't know. Okay, he ain't got no power, but he got a lot of weight on him, and he's a solid 168er. I'll tell you that. So I think Canelo's chin will be tested a little bit. His durability will definitely be tested, in my opinion, in this fight. He's gonna have to absorb some punches at 168. Yeah, but look, I see people slowly starting to come in now. Plat Boy Gaming in the building. My man probably just got off work. He out there doing the graveyard shift. What's good, man? Yeah, we're in here talking about these big fights coming up here at the end of the year. Krod, did you have anything else to say about this Canelo Plant? Or are you just at the point where, man, I just want the fight to happen? And I'm guessing you're going for Plant, yeah?
Yeah, I'm Caleb Plant all day, man. I just think that Canelo, he's afraid of, slick fighters. And I think Caleb Plant, he's basically just game bred to defeat Canelo and make him look average. Because Canelo, he's just been, to me, I just don't see his skill level getting any better. And every time, every time when Canelo fights all these tailor-made opponents that shouldn't even be fighting him, Rocky Fielding, Avni Yildirim, Liam Smith, Caleb Smith, all these European-bred fighters, that's just been making his skill level too comfortable with fighting those type of styles. And he hasn't been up against the more dangerous and difficult ones. So I just think with Caleb Plant, he's going to present something totally brand new and more treacherous to Canelo's confidence being broken in the fight to a point where he just can't basically mess with Plant anymore.
Let me ask you real quick. What do you say to the people that say Plant can't win because simply Plant is not as good as Billy Joe Saunders, and we know what happened to Billy Joe? What do you say to those people?
I would say name one southpaw that Canelo has never fought that has the same skills, if not better, than Billy Joe Saunders. Because last time I checked, Billy Joe Saunders did not display any of these tools that would be better than Caleb Plant. Because if Caleb Plant was a southpaw, I'm pretty sure he would have stopped Billy Joe Saunders within 3 rounds, if not less.
Interesting. I see a lot of people saying that all across YouTube. How does Plant gonna win when Billy Joe has fought better fighters at 168 and he's slick and he's a boxer, and Canelo broke his orbital bone and made easy work of him?
Yeah. It makes no sense because it's Canelo, he fought a lesser version of Billy Joe. He didn't catch Billy Joe when he was actually doing well, but even when he was caught with steroids, didn't Canelo just like, not decide to make the move to 168 anyway. So, like, basically, Canelo Alvarez, he just basically was just being careless to begin with, to not even go after 168 when it was completely wide open for him to take it over. Actually, no, he could have done it when David Benavidez got caught with cocaine, and then he could have easily just gone up, take his belt, go after Billy Joe or whoever was going to be up there anyway, and then boom, he would have been going after for undisputed, probably against some like European trash fighter. So like, why now? Because it's like, like the main reason why he's up there is because of David Benavidez. Otherwise, he wouldn't have made his way up to 168. He's not a true 168 pounder. If you look at his height compared to Caleb Plant, he's mad tall, man. His body type, his frame, he's just like, if anything, he's probably just as big as Charlo, if you really think about it. But compare that to Canelo, to other true super middleweights like David Morrell, even fucking Edgar Berlanga, all those guys, Canelo is not built for that weight class. If anything, his natural weight should be at 154 or 160, minus all that steroid bullshit.
Yeah, and a lot of people, when we talk about weight, a lot of people say, oh, well, but he beat Kovalev. What do you say to those people?
Kovalev is like, he's a fighter that's past his prime, and Canelo decided to just go up to 175 because he couldn't get what he wanted at 160, which was have an easier way to undisputed. Because, remind you, he avoided Andrade for multiple years, till this day, actually, where once it was time for him to, make that move to go for undisputed at 160 and 154, but especially at 160, he turned down a $40 million offer from Andrade's team to fight him for undisputed. So why the hell did you make the move to 175 anyway? Because guess what? Even if you had, decided to keep on fighting at 175, you had to go through Artur Beterbiev and Dmitry Bivol, which those guys have way more power than Kovalev. And then on top of that, they have more dog than Kovalev. Canelo knows damn well he cannot beat those guys, but even if he were to beat them and actually fought his butt off, he would have had to go through tooth and nail, like literally pure damage to go through those victories. I don't think Canelo really ever wanted that in the first place. He was just doing it just to keep himself busy, because even if he were to take the Andrade fight at 160, he knew that he was in for like a very bad style matchup. Otherwise, he would have been like a true champion to fight all the guys at 154, in which, remind you, he did not want to get more belts at 154 after he got his first belt. Correct me if I'm wrong. It was against, who was it? Who did he beat for the WBC title or WBA? I forgot.
What were you talking about again?
Canelo. Who did he beat for his first opponent to get a belt at 154?
Shit, that's a good question. Let's. I was gonna pull up his resume, anyways.
Yeah. If you could do that.
Yeah. So he won the ring and vacant WBC against Miguel Cotto.
Oh, okay, got it. So
that was a vacant title.
After he got that belt, he was supposed to fight either Jamal Charlo or Jermell Charlo that was on the come up, because Jermell Charlo was going to be his mandatory anyway for the belt. And then when Jamal Charlo, when he got his, I believe the IBF, right? Canelo, he could have easily unified with Jamal Charlo, take him out the way, and then, if he had to face Jermell Charlo as his next fight, he could have gotten that out the way, take out Andrade, and then his last fight probably would have been, man, who could have been the last champion? I want to say it probably would have been either Lara or maybe Brian Castano, maybe. Yeah,
Could have
maybe.
been, yeah.
Yeah, but still, like, Canelo, he avoided all that smoke at 154 because he knew he couldn't beat those guys. So, he wanted to try to do the same thing at 160. Didn't work out for him. So either way, it was just basically a failing, opportunity for him because, he just didn't have that confidence. So why did it take you like damn near like what, almost like 10 years just to go for undisputed now up against Caleb Plant? I don't get it, man.
You got this guy, Dickie Two Guns. Hey, hey, man. Look, it's just a man giving his opinion, bro. Just relax. All right. If you're a Canelo fan, it's fine, bro. Like, look, the link is being here's the thing, people. People want to say this guy's crazy, this guy's stupid, this guy doesn't know about boxing, blah blah blah. But to be honest with you, I put the link to this panel in the chat. So come in and prove the man wrong. If you don't like his points and you think he's crazy, and according to you, he sounds like he's on meth, then expose him then. Like, for real. Well, I mean, you're a boxing fan, cool. But, like, I'll put the link back in the chat. And, look, there's no need for you to, like, get crazy about it. Come in here and leave your thoughts. This is why we do this Firestorm. This is exactly what this is all about. That's exactly why K-Rod's in here.
Yeah.
So I got yeah, go ahead. Yeah, and you should have a fair opportunity to defend yourself. So go ahead.
Yeah. Because it's like every time when every Canelo fan gets pissed off, like when people actually try to, draft facts on like the actual situation that's being talked about, they don't ever want to bring up any conversation with you because every time when they debate, anything related to that issue, they have to use emotions instead of using actual constructive arguments. So if you actually do have a problem with what I'm saying, actually be a man about it and actually bring it up to me man to man by clicking this StreamYard link. Because if you're not, then you're basically conceding to the fact that I'm actually, making the attempt to make a point about the situation at hand, and you don't actually have anything to disagree with me. Otherwise, you would have been man enough to actually come on to this panel and actually speak your piece. Don't be a child and actually use, evil semantics per se to make yourself seem like that you're the bigger man when at the end of the day, you're not. Because if you actually had balls, you'd actually come onto this panel and actually say what you believed in.
Yeah, and look, at the end of the day, people, for me personally, I just have a pet peeve to the greatest extent when people accuse me of, you don't let nobody talk, you don't let nobody give their opinion, and you shut people out, and you block people and all this different stuff. Well, this is exactly why, if you're subscribed to the channel and you hang around long enough and not just click on a video here and there every one or two times a month, if you actually pay attention, anytime I do Firestorm, the link goes into the chat. You can click that link and be a part of the conversation. The only thing I ask is that you show yourself before you enter, because there's a lot of trolls out here, a lot of racists out here, and I don't got time for that. So I know K-Rod, and obviously he comes in. I let him come and speak his piece. Now, I've already pushed back against K-Rod, and I know K-Rod, right? I've already played devil's advocate, and I said, well, what do you say when people say this? Or what do you say when people say that? And that's what we do here, is we have a conversation. There's no point of like getting all bent out of shape because somebody doesn't agree with you and, they're all hating on Canelo. Look, man, and then what's funny is that when people talk about Canelo popping on PEDs, people get how you get upset about that? Why? How could you get upset about that? The dude fucked up. Yeah, okay, he got vindicated and whatever. He moved on. All right, so we're moving on now. He's fighting Plant, okay? And that's what we're trying to do. But you can't get upset Like, I think what people get upset about is, oh, you keep bringing up the past. Well, that's what we do. We talk about boxing. When you talk about boxers, who's better than the other guy, we got to go to the resume, right? You got to go to the history of what they have accomplished. That's how we break down fights. So anytime in boxing or MMA, I don't want to talk about MMA because I only talk about boxing, but it's a combat sport. Anytime a fighter pops on a PED or EPO or whatever it is, that's an asterisk mark on their career. I'm sorry. And the reason why I say this, and let me say this before I continue this conversation. The reason why I say that is because I want to take people down memory lane for a moment. Because when people say, oh, give Fury a break, give Canelo a break, give Valdez a break, they made a mistake. I say, okay, if you want me to be soft-hearted and kind and forgiving, I can do that. I'm a pretty forgiving person most of the time. But I'll say this. Ain't nobody out here gave Sugar Shane Mosley any sympathy when it was discovered that he was on EPOs after beating Oscar De La Hoya, which is probably his most notable win in his entire career. Would you not say, as a Canelo fan, that his most notable win was against Triple G? Isn't that his most notable win on his record? When people think of Canelo, they think of, oh, he beat Triple G. He was that guy. He was that guy who beat Triple G. Well, I'm sorry to burst your bubble. The dude popped on PEDs after he fought Triple G. So was he clean or not? Well, that's the problem. There's a question mark. There's a dark cloud. But, okay, you want us to be forgiving and say, oh, he served his penalty. Okay. But again, you guys, I'm not saying you guys in particular because I don't know how long people have been watching boxing, but I've been around for a long time. Nobody had this energy when Sugar Shane Mosley had to go to court. He had to go to court. Look it up on YouTube. The man had to plead in front of a judge and beg for forgiveness because the whole boxing community was ripping this dude to shred. They wanted to take the victory away from Oscar De La Hoya. They wanted him out of boxing. And everyone's like, yeah, get him out of here. So people forget about that. And that sticks with me a lot because I love Sugar Shane Mosley at lightweight, 130, 135. And, he was incredible to watch back then. He was exciting. And when he popped, I was like, damn, bro, like, really? You know what I mean? Like, it sucks. I get you. I understand your feeling. If you're a Canelo fan, it's hard to defend that. When I was talking about Shane Mosley when he popped, it was hard to defend that. I was like, yeah, man, shit, man. I don't know if he was clean when he beat De La Hoya. I don't even know now. And that sucks. It sucks. But you gotta accept it. So, people, look, man. You come to Divine Sense Boxing, keep it real and authentic. Sometimes the truth hurts. And let me say this, too, for the record. I don't have any problem, per se, against Canelo. I mean, like, someone like Fury, I just don't like Fury. I always come out and just say straight up, I don't like Fury. I think he's a clown. He's got one title defense, and people build him up as this great heavyweight, which maybe he could be, but he doesn't act like one. But I'm not going to swing this conversation in that direction. Canelo, I'm indifferent. I think he's got some skill. I always speak about his skill. I think he's accomplished some pretty good things in the sport. I think he's earned his way for the most part, except for that huge discrepancy, which is popping, because it questions everything that he's done. But I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. But yeah, I mean, I have the right, just like any other boxing fan or content creator out here, to criticize Canelo when, to K-Rod's point, he never fought the Charlo brothers. He never fought Andrade. As a matter of fact, he told Andrade, when Andrade went to him respectfully and said, hey, bro, like, I'd like to have the fight. Is that possible? Man, get out of here, motherfucker. And then when Plant says it, are you ready to punch a man in the face? I'm not allowed to criticize that. Devon says, hey, don't criticize Canelo. You know, he talked about his mom. Oh, so it's okay for him to talk about Andre's mom and disrespect his mother like that? When Andre didn't come at him aggressively, you can make the argument that Plant came at Canelo aggressively, but because they're about to fight. Andre didn't, though. Andre came in respectfully and just asked a question. So when fighters conduct themselves in this way, and they're two-faced, and they pretend that they're nice and they're a gentleman of the sport, nah, I'm going to criticize that shit every day, all day. Just like I criticized Mayweather. I was one of the biggest Mayweather fans on here back in 08, 09, 2010, and throughout his whole career. But when he did dumb shit outside the ring, a lot of flomos out here thinks he's God and don't do anything wrong, but I don't play that game. We talk about a fight, I'll tell you all day Floyd he's gonna win this fight. But I don't play that like dumb shit that he's done in the past. Going to strip clubs, throwing money around, you know, the things that the bullshit that he's been involved in outside the ring in his personal life, and I just don't get down with that. Now I'm not the moral police. I'm not God, you know. Only God can judge these people, but I am a content creator out here. I have a right to speak what I want to speak. So that's that. Now, I got the tail of the tape up here. This is where the conversation was going before some guy wanted to be disrespectful. Arturo, do you need to download anything to follow? No, it's on the browser. So for StreamYard, you don't got to download anything. Just click the link, and it'll just open up a browser. That's the cool thing about StreamYard. You don't got to download anything. It just takes you straight into your browser, and you're in. That's the thing about this. I'll drop the link in one more time.
Hey, Devon, could I just say one more thing before I dip out?
Yep.
All right. Well, I just want to say thank you for bringing me on once again. Hopefully we could do this again. And I just want to say to hell with Canelo Alvarez, to hell with his piece of shit racist fans, especially from the racist parts of California. You guys are dipshits. And just don't make any excuses when Caleb Plant beats the crap out of Canelo. Long live Caleb Plant. To hell with Canelo Alvarez once again, and fat ass Eddie Reynoso Cheetorito. And yeah, that's about it, man. Thank you.
You're welcome, bro. You're always welcome here, man. Always appreciate your opinion. We got Arturo jumping in too. I don't know if you want to stick around for that, Krod. Arturo, can you hear me?
Yeah, brother, I can hear you.
Well, it's good to finally have you a part of the conversation, man. I know anytime I talk about Canelo, I usually always see you here.
No, it's usually the time I can check in, but I was listening to what you guys were saying. I had a quick question. When he was popped for PEDs, though, he was popped after the first fight when Drew had that draw, and then when he won the fight, he was clean, right? He was on VADA testing, I should say.
Yeah, that's what I wasn't sure of, but that's why I was asking Krod.
Yeah, it happened after the first fight. That's why the second fight was so anticipated, was because that's when Triple G started talking about him being a drug cheat and everything else, and that's why that second fight was so dirty. That's why he even brings it up during the Plant when Plant was dissing him or whatever. He said I was really mad about that, and then now he's going through the same thing with Plant.
Right. I wasn't on YouTube yet at that point, so a lot of these little small details happening behind the scenes, I have to play catch up sometimes. But I understand on Canelo's side of things where I would probably be irritated too if people keep bringing up old shit. But at the same time, it's like, the thing is, this is not this is not baseball. This is not basketball. It's not American football. It is boxing, and it's like if you accuse Barry Bonds for taking steroids, it's like, that sucks. He broke the home run record. Oh, well. But in boxing, it's like people's lives are on the line. You know what I mean? And I think the problem is that if Canelo, right, let's say he seriously injured Triple G after the first fight, and then he pops. You can see where that conversation goes, right? And I think that's 100%. The fear That's the fear. That's where people are like, nah, man, like this is why we can't have it in the sport. Now, there's been so many conversations about it. I've heard people say boxers should be able to take anything they want. Everybody's on the same level playing field. And, everybody can take it if they want to take it and let the best man win. And so I can understand that statement, but at the same time, I'm like, nah, man. I mean, really? How are we going to compare modern day fighters to the old time fighters then, when the old time fighters never took PEDs?
Yeah, I
Now we
agree with
can't
you
have,
100%.
you know what I mean? Like now we can't even have conversations about all time greats now. And
Yeah,
the
no,
all
I
time
agree.
greats, these guys fought 15 rounds with no PEDs. We got fighters out here now today only fighting once, 2 times a year, and they can barely fight 12 rounds. They barely survive 12 rounds. And the fighters of old never had PEDs or nothing, and they fought 20 times a year.
Now, can you
So
vouch for that 100? Can you vouch for that 100% that back in the day they weren't using PEDs, or they just didn't have the testing that caught up to the PEDs?
you mean the fighters of old?
Right,
Certainly.
right. Yeah, I'm certain. Like, I'm not talking black and white fighters. I'm talking about as things got moving along, the money got bigger, and things
Sure.
of that nature.
Sure. So you're saying that you're saying that you understand why drugs became a part of the sport?
No, what I was saying was you were saying now, like people are like whether or not they should use them. But back in the day, how do you compare the old fighters compared to like a modern day fighter? And I
Right.
guess depending on where you draw that modern day fighter, because I'm sure that people were using roids even then, but they just didn't have the testing to catch them at that point. It's like modern medicine; they didn't know how to
Well,
catch them.
I would say that at this point in time, on the spot, I probably couldn't prove that older fighters weren't taking steroids, but I am still comfortable saying that I don't think they did. I don't think
Right.
steroids wasn't really a thing until like the 70s. You know what I mean? It's like, bodybuilders started using steroids and stuff like that. Maybe the 60s. And I mean, you're really like taking it back. And it's not just steroids. Boxers don't take steroids, really. They take performance enhancing, like so they can have a better power output, a better threshold, more stamina, more endurance, and things like that. Now, do the old fighters have little tricks where they found some magic mushrooms and some herbs somewhere that gives them a little bit of vitality, a little bit of more energy? Sure, that probably did happen. They mix it in with their tea, they mix it in with their oats in the morning. Sure, they probably did, right? Just like the gladiators in the Roman times, they probably eating some crazy shit because they had to go in front of a crowd of people and try not to die. So they probably ate anything they get their hands on to give them an edge. Sure, it's always been around combat sports, and it always will be. It's not necessarily like about money, and money does play a factor in it, but it's also pride, it's ego, it's I'm representing my country, all these different things. But I guess now, because drugs have been synthesized and you can put it in a pill form, you can put it in a synthetic form, and now technology is just, now it's not natural. Now it's synthetic. Now you know what I'm saying? Like you're making pills and injections out of it. It's not like, you go outside and you pluck a plant out of the ground and just eat it. It's kind of like comparing meth and marijuana in a way. The marijuana
No,
comes from the earth.
I agree with you. I'm not gonna lie and tell you that I'm not a Canelo fan. That I 100% that I am. But
Right.
he got busted, and that's shameful. And I'm a Canelo fan, and I can say that 110%. But when you're talking about some of the other stuff, like as far as resume, him ducking Andrade or Charlo or anyone, I'm like, you go back and look at the resume. Give me a boxer in the last 10 fights who has a better resume. And then you take those 10 fights, dump them, and go back another 10 fights after that. And it's very few, if any, fighters that have such a resume as Canelo. And again, I'm not saying Plant doesn't have a chance in the fight. I think he does. I think he will pose an issue. But whether or not he can handle the relentless pressure from Canelo, the timing, and everything else, that's to be seen. Does he have a chance? 100%. I think it's like a 60-40, 70-30, but I still think it favors Canelo. But I don't think it's just going to be a wash like some of these other Canelo fans that think it's just going to be an absolute wash. I don't see that.
I don't think it's going to be a wash either. I have you've been a part of the chat long enough, I think, for me to say and for you to hear that if Plant wins this, he has to box masterfully for 12 rounds. I mean, I'm not moving my position on that whatsoever. There might be some people that he's going to beat Canelo up. He's going to beat him down. He's going to beat him up. I just, as much as I might like to see that, I just know too much about boxing to know that's not going to happen, in my opinion. We also got Big Dog Willie. Can you hear me?
Hello?
Yo.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, brother. What's good?
Okay. Nothing. I have a quick second just to talk. So we're talking about Canelo and Plant or Stevenson
we talked about Stevenson and Herring earlier in the live, but yeah, we're talking about Plant and Alvarez at the moment.
Yeah. So I agree with you, Divine. Like, I think Plant has to have, like, I wouldn't say a perfect night, but he has to box his ass off. I can just see Canelo Alvarez just bullying him around the ring. He can't trade with Canelo at all. He just has a stick and move the whole time. I don't think he can sit there and be in the phone booth with him, not for 1 second of that fight, or he's gonna get caught.
Right. Yeah, I said earlier that I don't think it's a smart idea for Plant to sit down on punches and try to exchange. That's a trap that Canelo will try to set for sure. And Plant does have that thing, and he has that like dog in him where he's like try to prove a point and like, I'm gonna try to land a 5-punch combo on you. You know what I mean? And he's been caught before by lesser tier fighters than Canelo. Let's not get it twisted. He has been hit, and I believe he's been cut as well in fights against guys not on Canelo's caliber.
Yeah, I don't think Canelo likes to specifically have a boxing match with people. I think he gets frustrated when he has to go and fight whole 12 rounds with a boxer. He wants to force the fight. And recently, or for a long time, he has been getting away with it. So I want to see if he can actually, if Plant does what he's supposed to do, actually sit there. For me, it'd be impressive for him to sit 12 rounds with Plant and try to box with him. But I can't see him doing that. I can't see Canelo doing that at all.
I got a question for you. Do you guys both think that Plant is a better fighter than Jacobs? I was the one that put that up earlier about Jacobs, but do you think Plant is a better fighter than Daniel Jacobs?
I'll answer that here just in a second. I do want to give a shout out real quickly to Nitty G in the building. What's up, man? Nitty G, an official member of the channel, bro. I appreciate you stopping by tonight. Also, Tony Forrester, man, what's good. For me, yeah, I do think he's better than Jacobs, and I like Jacobs a lot. I love his story. And it's funny because I thought that Jacobs will surprise everyone and beat Canelo, and he had some bright spots in that fight. And Canelo just proved to be a little bit too much towards the end. But I think that, in a fight between Jacobs and Plant, which I don't think will ever happen, but if it were to happen, I think Plant would outbox Jacobs, in my opinion. I think Plant is, and granted, I'm a bit biased when it comes to the boxing or the boxer style. It's a style that I've always supported most of my time here talking about boxing. I was a huge Mayweather fan. I was a huge Rigondeaux fan. Back in the day, I was a huge Pernell Whitaker fan. My favorite fighter of all time is Willie Pep. I always tend to go for the guy that boxes, the whole punch and not be punched type of thing. And the only time where I don't think I've ever went for a guy like that was probably the fact of me going against Fury. Fury does, he's typically always represented that. I just have always liked Wilder, but typically speaking, I go for the boxer. and I think that Plant would outbox Jacobs. And yeah, I'll go ahead and let Big Dog answer that before I move on to my next point.
Yeah, I think that fight. I would say that Plant and Jacobs. When Jacob is on top of his game, I think they're pretty much even, and maybe a little. But but Jacob has been on top of his game for a long time, and I think when he fought Canelo, I think he didn't come to fight really. To be honest with you, I thought that he dog half the fight. He wasn't engaging. I don't think he came to fight against Canelo, and that's why it was basically a wash, in my opinion. So I don't.
I think
Yeah,
he came to
I
fight.
can't give Jacob that credit.
I think he came to fight. I mean, you can make the argument that maybe he wasn't prepared or he had a long layoff. That's fine. I think he wanted to win. I think he came to win. I just think he came up short, in my opinion.
I didn't see him.
I don't know what I put
To
on
me,
Beach,
I see him fight better. So that's why I said that.
You know, that I was saying earlier, I was going for Jacobs. I thought Jacobs was going to pull it off. I thought he was going to upset it, based off of what I've seen him do previously. And I didn't see a lack of heart or a lack of drive, but I did see a lack of, or maybe a depreciation of his skill. I think that, he wasn't the same, coming from a long layoff, and yeah, so he just didn't do what I thought he was going to do to win the fight. But like I was saying earlier, I got the tail of the tape here up on the screen, and we can look at it real quick and browse over it. The one thing that sticks out to me, obviously, with the tail of the tape, the record, I'll say it right here for the record. Canelo Alvarez has a better record than Caleb Plant. I mean, if you think that Caleb Plant has a better record or resume, then
no, that's not. Yeah, that's not.
I don't know where you're coming from. Now, Canelo Alvarez has a better resume because he's, conquered multiple weight classes. And he's been a professional probably longer. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I'm pretty sure he has been.
Canelo's a great fighter. I mean, no diss about it. He's a great fighter. I just think that he's a great fighter. He's been the best. Besides, see this thing, I used to like Canelo until he got popped. So, and I'm really against people using performance enhancing drugs, especially in combat sports. So I lost a lot of respect for him, but he is a great fighter, and you can't take that away from him. So, and his resume is the best.
My man Chavo says, Devon Jacobs was also drained. Canelo put in that no rehydration clause. I do remember that, actually. Thanks for bringing that up, Chavo. Yeah, that could have played a role. That's very possible. But look, the resume-wise, Canelo has a better resume. I don't spend too much time about that because to me, it's not debatable. It's not. You can't debate it. And that's not a. I'm not hating on Plant. It just is what it is. But one thing that I do see that stands out to me is the height and the reach. Plant is 3 inches taller and a 3-inch reach advantage, 3.5-inch reach advantage. Now, has Canelo fought taller fighters before? Yes. Has he fought fighters who has longer reach than him? Yes. I mean, quite frankly, 70-inch reach for a guy who's 5'9" is I don't know. It's like mediocre, I guess. I don't know where you would draw the line as far as reach is concerned. Put in perspective, I'm 5'10" and I have a 74.5 reach as well. I have long arms. So I just think that it comes down to size, right? It comes down to Canelo's really, he's not a real 168 pounder. He's 5'9" with a 70-inch reach. He fits nicely in that 150 pound range and, or 50, maybe 160. Maybe 160, but 155 to 160. That's where I see him being the most successful. Now, I give him full credit moving up and fighting a real, true 168 pounder, and that is Caleb Plant. Caleb Plant is 6'1". He's a big guy. He's got a long reach. Probably walks around at 175 plus. He definitely cuts weight to make 168. Guarantee that. I guarantee that. And, he has 12 knockouts on his record, which is about 50%. Canelo has 59 fights, and he's got 38 knockouts. So he's up in the what is that? Probably like 70% range. So he has, he's got more power. Will it carry into 168? I mean, that's something that we're gonna find out. Arturo, since I still got you here, let the people know how you see this fight playing out, and what's your prediction?
Well, I kind of see it what Canelo said in the beginning. I really do think that Plant's gonna he'll be fresh in the beginning, probably strong jab, move him around, be elusive. Similar to, well, I know most people say Billy Joe Saunders. I think he'll be more effective than that. I think he'll land a little bit more. He may get tagged a little bit more as well when in some exchanges, but I think that in the later rounds, Canelo punishes them to the body, and then that eventually leads to his head, and then it's going to be, I think it'll be a knockout late round 9-10 stoppage, or it could go to decision. But if it goes to decision, it's because it's all heart from Plant, surviving the onslaught in the later rounds. That's my opinion.
Okay. And before I swing it to Big Dog, let me ask you real quick. If Canelo wins, he's now the undisputed super middleweight champion of the world. He makes history. Well, either of these two fighters have a chance to make history. But if he wins, do you think that he'll stay and defend these titles, or he will jump up again? What do you think he'll do?
You know what? That's a great question. I hope that he stays and he fights David Benavidez, to be honest. I think that would be a mega fight if he were to win, and I hope that he gets the credit if he does beat Plant, because every time he beats, like when he beat Callum Smith and everyone else, I don't think he got his credit. It's like, oh, it's just another European fighter who dumped his title to him. But I hope that he wins. But if he does win, then I would like him. If he does win that and he wants to prove that he still has, prove more people wrong, then he needs to jump up to 175 and take on. I would love to see him take on Bivol or Better Biev. I think that would be monster on either side, and I think that would make him legendary if he beats either Better Biev or Bivol, jumping up to 175.
Right. I mean, that's you're really talking about making history there. If he becomes undisputed and then he goes up and conquers something at light heavyweight. I'm not quite sure how I feel about that. I am an advocate for people defending titles. I feel like that's important. Because when the history books are. Go ahead.
Sorry about that. No, I was saying, if not that, like, this is like what I say, what would I want as like a fan? But like on the other side, on the flip side, I would love to see him fight Andrade. I would love to see him fight Charlo too. There's a lot of talk about that. I would love to have him step up to 168 and say, like, all right, you guys want a piece? Come get me at 168. That would be something I would love. They want it, so give it to them.
Right. And I think that's the problem, is that, a lot of people, not you, because I think, Arturo, you've come on here and you've been very transparent and very respectful, and I appreciate that from you, because not everybody has that type of behavior, unfortunately. But there are a lot of Canelo fans out there that are diehard, and they feel like, oh, Canelo can just do whatever he wants to do because he's the best. It's like, well, I mean, you can have that opinion, I guess, if he continues to move up and try to conquer other weight classes. But when the history books are written, they'll say, well, he left a lot of people behind, right? And I have the rankings up here on the screen for those of you who are curious on what the current ratings are. So if he becomes undisputed and decides to move up again and vacates all these belts, he's going to leave David Benavidez behind. He's going to leave Darrell behind. He's going to leave the Charlo brothers behind, possibly, if they decide to move up at 168. So, these are things that people will bring up when the history books are written. They're going to say, "Well, why didn't you fight these guys?" And then, of course, you're going to get people that are going to say, "Why didn't he fight African American fighters? Why didn't he fight black fighters?" They're going to say that too. So, that's just the way boxing works.
That's an unfair thing that Canelo's saying. He doesn't fight African American fighters. He does. He may not fight him now, but he did fight Jacobs. He is an African American fighter. You know, how you want to argue and say he wants to fight all of them, I believe is a totally different story. And then on the flip side of what you're saying about him leaving, and sorry for if I cut you off, if he were to be like Triple G and stay at 160, then the question is, why didn't he go up and never challenge himself? Triple G never left 160, always stayed at 160 and stayed in his comfort zone, stayed in his pocket and never left out. So it's kind of like a mixture. It's like, what do you want to do? And I'm sure if according to what he says, he's an historian of boxing. So he's like, okay, where can we make some moves as well? And it's kind of like, well, I guess it's a choose, like, what do you prefer? I guess you're going to make people pissed off no matter what you do, right?
Oh, for sure. I mean, you can't make everybody happy. It's the argument of the all-time greats is always subjective. I'm just simply being devil's advocate here. If you move up and you fight European champions up at light heavyweight, European champions as in, white fighters, and then you leave behind 2, possibly 3, possibly 4 fighters at 168 who happen to be black from America, then that's what people are going to say. I mean, that's just the way it works when people talk about all-time greats and pound for pound. See, the thing about Triple G is you can't put him in pound for pound conversation because, to your point, he stayed at 160, right? But he can be discussed as one of the better, if not one of the best or the best middleweights of this generation.
By default.
Right. By the simple fact that he stayed in that weight class and he was a champion for quite a long time and he defended his belts for quite a long time until he lost to Canelo.
By default, I don't believe that I think he's the most overrated middleweight in the last 40 years, honestly.
40 years.
Yes, 40 years.
Well, okay, so do you put him above who do you put above him that was a middleweight champion in the 90s?
Middleweight champ? I mean, which middleweight you talking about? You talking about Roy Jones, Hopkins, those guys?
Yeah, 160. Anyone who fought at 160 and was a champion.
I can put those two up there easily. That's right there. That's 2 of them. But they moved up. They moved up. I think that the generation that he missed the Floyd and Hopkins generation. And I think he just got a soft spot in between, was it 2008 up until now? Is that when he started, 2008, right?
Who's that?
Triple G.
His career?
Yeah, when did he start? 2008?
I could check for you right now. He started his first fight as a professional was in 2006.
Okay. But I think he just hit a soft spot, really, honestly. They have nobody. Only lately, Charlo and Andrade came up there. And I can't, and then Canelo, and he lost Canelo. I can't think of anybody else that was competitive enough for him at that level. I think he hit a soft spot, so I think he's overrated.
Yeah. I'm not arguing with you. I'm not trying to defend Triple G. I see what you're saying. There was a bit of a soft spot there, and it's probably a conversation for another time. Comparison, I have to look at Roy Jones Jr. at 160. Bernard Hopkins, you probably hit the nail on the head with Bernard. He was at that weight class for a long time. Roy, he jumped up, went down, lost fights when he came down, and it's kind of a little bit scattered. But I'll give you that. I'll say he did. He was in a weight class during a time where there wasn't any like one guy that could beat him or 2 guys that could have beat him. When you look at his resume, I'm looking at it right now. Notable wins is Curtis Stevens, Curtis Stevens, Marco Antonio Rubio, Willie Monroe, who we haven't heard from in years, David Lemieux, who was up and coming but lost all of his big fights, Dominic Wade, Kell Brook, which is kind of laughable at that weight class, and Danny Jacobs. And then he draw a loss to Alvarez. So, yeah, I would agree. He did hit a soft spot of the middleweight division. Unfortunately for Triple G, it's now the middleweight division's heating up now, and you got a lot of talent at 160 now.
And he's not fighting nobody. He's not fighting none of them. That's what I'm
And
saying.
he's still technically active. So yeah, you got a point. He's still technically active. You've
And I
got
think that gives
Andre at
credence to your point,
160.
Divine.
Yes, go ahead.
I said, and that's what gives. I think that gives to your point what you were saying earlier about Canelo. That's why I want him to fight the black fighters, even though this isn't about race or anything like that. But I would like him to fight him, so that way they can't say that he dodged or dipped anyone for an ethnicity, for a style of boxing. That's the reason why I would want him to go to 160 as a fan, even over the challenge. It's like, look, just settle, let the dust settle and go after those guys instead. If he beats Plant again, assuming he beats Plant, go back. And then that way you can establish yourself and then bury the hatchet on that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it's easier to defend. It's much easier to defend a guy if you're in a position to make an all-time great list. And for us, we're just content creators on YouTube, just chilling and making our opinions, or putting our opinions out there. But if you're a columnist, you're a journalist, ESPN, whatever it is, you're making a list, right? It's easier to defend a fighter who worked in a couple weight classes and defended titles and did a lot of work to clean up their divisions than it is defending a fighter who fought for a belt, won, moved up, fought for a belt, won, moved up, fought for a belt, won, moved up, or came back down, won a fight, and then moved back up again. Yes, they won a lot of belts, but they never fought contenders. They never fought guys who were their mandatories. Never fought guys who were up and coming, and you never gave anybody a title shot. So it's easier to defend a guy who has stayed in a weight class, defended his belts, then moved up and did that same thing. I mean, you can look at I don't know. I'm trying to think of a good example. But look at Sugar Ray Robinson, right? Most people have him as the greatest fighter of all time. He's predominantly a welterweight. Welterweight / super welter, junior middle, whatever you want to call it. But that's really that's where he's fought like Jake LaMotta and Gene Fulmer and have these big epic like trilogy and quadruple fights of fighting each other 5 times. But that's where he's known for, because he's in those weight classes and he's cleaning it up. And he's leaving no doubt in people's minds that there's nobody who can touch me at these weight classes. And so, in my opinion, it's easier to defend that than it is a guy just jumping up and never defending titles, never fighting mandatories, and et cetera, et cetera. So that is my opinion on that. And that's, again, when you have a guy like Triple G, I can see where Big Dog Willie's point here is he how can I put this in comparison? I'm trying to think of an example of a fighter who dominated a weight class, fought everybody he could, but the weight class wasn't that strong. There are other examples of that. So is it Triple G's fault? You can say it's his fault now, but now he's what? Almost 40? Right? He's what? I don't know where the fuck is his age.
Almost 40, yeah.
Yeah, so he's 39. So you can criticize him now, but it's like now he's 30. Now he's past his prime. So do we really criticize him for fighting in a weight class with not a lot of talent while he was still in his prime? Is it really his fault?
It's not his fault. But it's not his fault. But when I hear people saying, the amount of praise he gets, like he said, oh well, he can beat Hagler and stuff like that. Look at his records. And I'm like, come on, man. And that's the stuff I'm talking about.
He ain't beating Hagler.
So
he ain't beating Hagler.
That's the stuff I'm talking about. He's not beating B-Hop. He's not beating Hagler. He's not beating Monzon. He's not beating a lot of people.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I agree with that. But again, in his generation, in his era, at 160, how harshly do you criticize him in his era? Not as an all-time great.
No. I don't. Like I said, I don't. In his era, he's great. But I think when it comes to all-time greats, this is what I'm saying. He is overrated as an all-time great.
He dodged Ward.
And that was a bad one.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Ward is always a little thorn in my side. because he retired at like what 33 or 32 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me a little bit of Rocky Marciano, right? Rocky Marciano catapults up to the top of the heavyweight division, and he beats a lot of guys. Like, okay, so I just thought about it. There you go, Rocky Marciano. Rocky Marciano. I knew there was a guy that was on the tip of my tongue. Look at Rocky Marciano's record, right? He fights guys like Archie Moore, clearly out of his prime.
Mm-hmm.
He fights Ezra Charles, not necessarily out of his prime yet, but has had a shitload of wars before he got Rocky Marciano. Then he beat who else did he beat? He beat Joe Louis, right? Beat Joe Louis. Joe Louis is way out of his prime.
Yeah.
Right? So how much do you criticize Rocky Marciano's record? My biggest criticism is not necessarily, I mean, he did fight who was available at the time. There was no real competition at heavyweight during that time, except for these aging champions, and he beat them. But my biggest issue with Rocky Marciano is that he retired when he was like 33. Right?
Yeah, but you can't get mad for people who retire from boxing. Fine.
I'm not saying that, but I mean 33 though?
You can't get mad, man. That's a sport, man. That's a brutal sport.
Okay, but again, people are going to make the argument that, oh, you retired at 33, and then a year later you have Floyd Patterson moved up, you had all these heavyweight division changed, but he never fought these guys, and at that he could have been 35, 36. If you want to make the argument, if people want to retire at 30, that's their prerogative. If Andre Ward wants to retire,
I was just saying for his health, it makes sense, but then it's hard when you do comparisons because if you retire early, and how do you compare the greats that went deeper in their age? It's hard because you risk more the older you get.
Sure. And I mean, do I think every fighter has to go and have a career like Bernard Hopkins and fight until you're damn near 50? No. But I'm just saying that this is what the boxing pundits do. Now, most people, though, ironically enough, give Rocky Marciano the benefit of the doubt, and they make him one of the greatest heavyweights of all time. Not just of that era, but all time. So will they do that for Triple G?
They can try. But I think a lot of people in that era knows that Rocky Marciano is not the greatest heavyweight. Like we think about we weren't there in the 1950s, and we just know the history behind it. Now somebody like my grandpa, rest in peace, or somebody who's older, they were like, he didn't really fight the people that he could have fought. He could have fought Liston. He didn't fight Liston. He could have fought a couple other people that he didn't really get to fight. And they were like, he's not that good. I mean, he's good. Don't get me wrong.
Talking about Rocky.
But he's not. Huh?
Talking about Rocky?
I think he was talking about Triple G. Triple G. He's good, but yeah, he just didn't have that other half. His other half was Canelo. That's what they wanted, that number 3, which I hope it doesn't happen because I don't feel it's going to go Triple G's way. I don't think he has a chance at all now at this point. But I think that's what he was saying. You can mistake me if I'm wrong. I can't remember what your name was, sir.
The audio is messed up, so I'm trying to catch what you guys are doing. On my end is messed up.
Yeah.
No, I was comparing Triple G's and Rocky Marciano, how they compare. And I think Rocky Marciano if you compare the two, Rocky Marciano is better than Triple G.
Oh, that's fair. I mean, I have Rocky Marciano's record pulled up just in case any of the viewers want to look over it. But, I've always juggled the idea of making a video and or live stream about Rocky Marciano. And just dedicate it to that. I don't have any problem per se. People saying, I think he was one of I think for most journalists and websites, they have Rocky at least a top 10, I believe, from what I've seen. And I don't necessarily have a problem with it. I also understand people's argument though. When they say, he could have stuck around a little bit longer and fought young and upcoming champions, because he didn't fight any young champions. He didn't.
He didn't.
He didn't fight any champion that was in their prime. So were his skills really tested? And the crazy thing is is that I believe when he fought Jersey Joe, I believe it was,
There's
Jersey Joe
Walcott.
like knocked him down twice. And Jersey
Yeah,
Joe was like fucking 38 years old or something.
yeah, he was.
So it knocked him down twice. And then Marciano, got up like he
Caught
always
him.
does and won the fight. But what if that was a Jersey Joe that was 5 years younger? Or somebody of Jersey Joe's skill set. So that's the thing, right? This is the thing about boxing, right? We can sit here and talk about fantasy fights all day long. And, I wish this would have happened, that would have happened. The cool thing that I like about the 80s, right, when you have Hagler, Hearns, Duran, all these guys, Leonard, they all fought each other. And that's a beautiful thing when you go back to that era. They all fought each other. They all had one guy that was a little bit better than the other guy, but they were all great fighters. And if I had to pick one name out of all those guys who were my personal favorite, who I think should get the nod, is Marvin Hagler at middleweight. I think Marvin Hagler
by far. I mean,
yeah,
you can say Hagler and then Mazone second. So
you got
that's
Manzone
what
in there too.
Huh?
Yeah, you got Manzone in there as well. It's a beautiful era.
So, Devon, then I have a question for you. So then at 160, and even at 168 before, with the whole Canelo thing being in there, why aren't they fighting each other? If we hold it to that type of standard, those dudes aren't fighting each other, not mixing it up.
At what weight class? Sorry,
it's a different era.
At 160, like why aren't they fighting each other? Like Charles, Andre, all them, if they've been trying to chase Canelo, why aren't they fighting each other to do that? What's the hold up there? So everyone fights everyone. That's super serious.
It's a fair question. I would say that first off, fighters only fight 2 to 4 times a year. And when you get up to the championship level, you fight sometimes only once a year. So the opportunities are scarce. And so therefore contenders are always going to chase belts. They're going to chase champions. They're going to chase paydays. I agree with you though. I agree that they all should fight each other to really find out who really deserves a chance to fight the champion. Because sometimes in this era, what ends up happening is that these contenders, quote unquote, move up too quickly and fight for a title and they get their ass whooped. And then it's like, well, this dude wasn't ready. Well, he didn't have to take on enough stiff competition on his way for a title shot. That's how boxing used to work. Like you got to do X, Y, and Z before you even get a title shot, right? And we did that even at least in the 70s and 80s. They were still doing that to some extent. Nowadays, it's like, oh, this guy looks pretty good, and oh, he beat this guy who used to be a champion, so I think he's got the right to fight the current champion. And and we see what happens a lot of times where the champion is too good.
I don't think it's that. I'll be honest with you. They don't fight each other at all. I don't care if they did have a like Charlo, Andre, Spence, Spence and what's the name? But I can't think of his name right now. Crawford, all the lightweights, everybody, Devin Haney, T.O., Ryan, I don't know where Tank's at in that thing, and the other guy, they just don't fight each other, and it doesn't matter who they fight, who they beat, they just not gonna fight each other, and because they're looking for either some crazy payday, or they want to keep their O, and this is how boxing is gonna be until the government comes in and makes and put something on those section bodies. It's not going to ever be the same because there's too many goddamn belts, too many damn weight classes.
I agree.
And so if you have one belt and you have the IBF belt or the WBO belt or whatever, you can stay with that WBO belt and fight mandatories for your whole career.
I agree. Sometimes I get confused. Like I'm on the Ring magazine or ringtv.com. And, you go to other websites and they name things differently. It's not junior lightweight. It's super featherweight. It's like, what? It's stupid. It's like I hate how they do it. Oh, it's not. I remember back in the day they used to call it super welterweight, and then now it's junior middleweight. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know
just
no more.
irritates me. It just irritates me. I'm like, well, what are they fighting for? They're fighting for super welterweight. What's that? Oh no, that's 154. Oh, but I thought that's junior middleweight. So,
and see, if you look at the ratings right here, you have Ryan Garcia ahead of Devin Haney,
which is retarded.
Which is ridiculous. He don't even have a belt.
It's just stupid. It's just it's silly. It's silly.
So this is the type of shit I'm talking about.
I mean, the fight that should be to your point, Arturo, right? The fight that should be looking at the lightweight division here. This is 130 right here. The fight that should be happening is Haney and Lomachenko.
Yeah.
Because Garcia ain't fighting nobody. He always hurt. He hasn't fought in a year. And I'm tired of people talking about Ryan Garcia. So the fight that should be made right now is Devin Haney and Lomachenko. Then the winner of that fights the winner of Lopez and Kambosos. That's how it should be.
Why Linares ahead of Fortuna?
That's another good question.
Set that up, Divine. Put it in.
Man, I should be a promoter. But you know what, man? I've been telling people for years, like, that I could never, because a lot of people say, "Hey, Divine, man, you should be a journalist. You should go in there and ask questions." They'd kick me out. I'm telling you right now, they would kick me out. They don't want me asking questions, because I don't play that. I don't play that political game, man. And I would ask fighters very uncomfortable questions, and I don't want to hear none of this. Well, this is just not the way the boxing works. You're a boxer, bro. Like you saying that you're the best, but you're not proving that you're the best. Well, back in the day when people say that they're the best, that you believed that they were the best. When Muhammad Ali said that he was the best, you believed him, right? Even when he took L's, people still believed him. That he's one of the best heavyweights, you know what I mean? Because he fought everybody. Everybody.
100%. That was a different time. That was a different time. Those days are gone.
Yeah. So now when you're a journalist / reporter or whatever, and you go in and ask these type of questions, and they try to make it like, oh no, boxing has changed. Well, I guess if boxing has changed, it is what it is, but that doesn't change the fact that you're not the best unless you're fighting the best, period. I don't care how you try to code it, sugarcoat it. I don't care how you try to make it out. If you want to try to, oh, well, boxing, it's all about money now. Oh, well, okay. Well, that doesn't make you the best, though. It doesn't change the fact. It doesn't change the fact. And you know what? Big Dog and Arturo, I'll tell you right now, there's a very good chance that we'll never see the Devin Haney-Lomachenko fight. There's a very good chance that we'll never see the Devin Haney-Lopez fight, even though they're out there talking shit to each other.
Nope.
Lopez will probably move up to challenge another weight class and unify the titles, go for a payday, and then Haney will fight Ryan Garcia or some dumb shit.
Ryan Garcia's not going to fight these guys.
Yeah.
Ryan Garcia's not going to fight neither one of those guys at the top. None of them. I guarantee you that.
Creativity starts with what ifs. What if there's fire? Nah.
Yeah, so, that's just what it comes down to, in my opinion. Like, if you say you're the best, and you got to beat the best, and I know it's a very old school mentality, and Divine, like, I don't know how you could say those days are gone. I hate to agree with you, but doesn't mean I have to like it. Doesn't mean I have to support it.
Yeah, the promoters are to blame for all that, man. I hate when they say one boxer's ducking another. I don't think they really duck each other, man. I think it's just money and all the politics that get in the way that mess up these fights.
Yeah, I think it's a it might be. I think the promoters for one thing, and I think the sanction bodies. I think those two is like literally 80% of why boxing's fucked up, and it's sad, man. We're not going to ever see great fights unless you. I can't see it. I can't see a great fight.
Yeah, it's sad, and I feel like back in the day, I used to have really heated arguments and debates when we would talk about Pacquiao Mayweather and who would have the better resume. And you know what's crazy is is back in those days, I would always defend Mayweather, right? When it's all said and done, I would always say that Floyd was always a better fighter.
Mm-hmm.
But resume, though, it's tough for me to defend that against Pacquiao. But what's crazy to me is that Floyd had an opportunity to have one of the greatest resumes of all time. Coming up from the weight class that he came up from and capturing those early titles before he came Money Mayweather, he could have had one of the greatest resumes of all time. When he decided to fight only, yeah, it could have been his hands. It could have been, he's, that, and he's just trying to make money. It's all about money and what happened. Yeah, making the big fights and stuff like that. Around the time he fought Ricky Hatton was around the time where he was like, "All right, I'm Money Mayweather now, and I'm gonna fight the big names. I'm gonna fight once, maximum twice a year, get these big paydays." He beat Oscar De La Hoya. He became the cash cow. But yeah, it could have been his hands. But I think that he had a golden opportunity to really make an amazing case for himself to not only be, going 50-0, which if you count the Conor McGregor fight, you may or may not, but being undefeated, but also have an opportunity of cleaning out weight classes and defending belts. And it just didn't happen. It didn't happen because of how boxing has changed over time.
It was about money, and I can't really blame him for to do that because these promoters, fucking with Bob Arum and the rest of the guys, they were gonna treat him right.
Oh, for sure, Top Rank and Bob Arum, they were screwing Mayweather over big time, and I do not fault Mayweather for leaving and creating his own entity and his own promoting company, promoting himself, being his own boss. I give him respect. I never will knock another man's hustle. And, and Canelo has done that himself to a certain extent as well. That's also one thing that I think that he learned from the Mayweather fight and going through that whole saga. And he's promoted himself and he's branded himself the Pride of Mexico and all that stuff. And the big difference is he actually does knock people out, and Mayweather stopped knocking people out.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I will never knock a man's hustle, man, because you, in my opinion, you're just a hater. And one thing that I always criticized Pacquiao for was him being with Top Rank too damn long, man.
Too long, and
too damn long with Top Rank.
100% agree with you.
And he had the star power, he had the money, and he had the perfect opportunity to say, "Hey, Bob, thanks. It's been a great run. I'm going to make Manny Pacquiao Pac-Man promotions. I'm going to do my own shit." And he didn't do it. He tried to stay loyal to Top Rank and stay loyal to Bob Arum. And as much as people try to make the whole debate about, it was the random drug testing, before the random drug testing, Olympic-style testing came into play, it was promotional companies. Floyd did not want to deal with Bob Arum, period.
Yep, that's the whole reason.
And that's what started it. Later on, when Floyd was kind of like, all right, I'll bend a little bit to deal with Top Rank, even though I don't want to, but you're going to have to take this testing. And then it was like, the needles and all that crazy shit happened. But yeah, who we got in here? Rafael, what's good, man?
What's up, guys? I've been, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
I can hear you.
Yeah, I've been listening to the conversation for about an hour. I've been enjoying every bit of it. So I decided to jump on and talk to you guys.
Appreciate that. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I mean, just getting back to what you were saying of how unlike the 70s and the 80s, these guys are not really fighting each other. I think one of the biggest reasons why that's happening I think it's primarily driven by boxing culture, where people get rocked in a fight. A young fighter gets rocked, and now they're exposed. And if you have a loss, you're trash. I think it has something to do with the Mayweather effect, where everybody wants to be Mayweather and have that perfect record. Where, in all honesty, the very best boxers have lost, and in order for us to get the best fights, we need to stop calling these people that put it out on the line when they step into the ring trash if they lose a fight.
Right.
That's very true. That is very, very true. I'm glad you said that point, Rafael, because, yeah, there was a time where you took a loss and you can bounce back from it, and nowadays, yeah, it's like if you lose, you get thrown to the back of the line and you got to wait your turn again. So to Rafael's point and Big Dog Willie, and I think maybe Arturo hit on it too, is like you're afraid to, if you got to owe, you're afraid to let it go. And when that happens, it's like if I'm going to lose my O, then I'm going to make sure that I'm going to get paid for it. I'm going to make sure that I come out on top financially. If not, it's not worth it. And that goes for champions as well, not just contenders, prospects moving up. That goes for champions too. Champions don't want to take those risks. They're like, I'm not going to lose to this young contender. And that's why I got a respect for Herring. Herring didn't have to fight Stevenson. Herring could have said, you know what, man, I'm going to, maybe fight some other dudes out here, and Stevenson, young, Olympic medalist, silver medalist in the Olympics, amateur pedigree, moving up. Dude is nice, got a nice IQ, all these different things. This is a huge risk for Herring. And if Herring wins, it's a huge victory for Herring. Simply because
I can't wait to see that fight.
Oh, me either, bro. Me either.
One thing that you said though about being money, and not to throw more of a wrench to it, but just because we had talked. Now Plant saying that he wasn't fighting for money, that's a lie. He's got that $10 million. He wanted money. He wanted to get paid too.
Oh, that $10 million, that feels good. Trust me.
Exactly. I'm not saying he shouldn't get paid.
Good.
He should, but yeah, he got that $10 million. But I just wanted to say thanks a lot, man, for letting me come on your channel.
Yes, sir.
Divine
yes, sir.
Boxing. I appreciate it. I'm gonna head back to the chat.
All right, man. Thank you, man. Yeah, I just pulled up Floyd Mayweather's resume up here real quickly because I wanted to put an exclamation point on my point, which is when he beat Gennaro Hernandez, when he won the super featherweight title. Here we go with these damn supers again. It's annoying. So he beats him, and he goes on a nice little run retaining that title, right? He beats Manfredi, Carlos Rios, Justin Junko, and then he retains that title 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, right? Then he beats Diego Corrales, which is huge. I mean, he really defends this title very, very nicely, really setting himself up for great things. Beating Diego Corrales, and then he beat he had those 2 battles with Castillo, and that's when he grabbed the lightweight titles. And it's up into the point where he gets up in there and gets ready to fight Oscar De La Hoya for that light middleweight title. But yeah, maybe it was his hands, and I think it was hands, it was money, it was a lot of different things. But comparably to other great fighters, Floyd did start his career off on the right foot. It just kind of flared out when he became Money Mayweather. And I guess that kind of, segues into what we're talking about here, where it's like it's money, it's promotion, it's, not wanting to take risks, whatever it may be.
Divine, there's a lot of Hall of Famers on that list.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Hall of Famers on that list.
Oh, bro, like I do like Mayweather's resume. You don't even know, bro. Like I've debated this resume against many, many Pacquiao fans, against many other fans, and you have ground to stand on. It's not like if you are Mayweather on Mayweather's side defending his resume, you have a chance to beat anybody in debate as long as you present it in the right way. Pacquiao has a lot of Hall of Famers on his resume too.
Oh yeah, he does.
Pacquiao also has probably 20 or so more fights. So, it's a great debate. It's a very, very good debate. But I agree with you. Mayweather does have some Hall of Famers on his resume, and he started his career off on the right foot. I just feel like it fizzled out a little bit once he got past Oscar De La Hoya, because check it out. He beats Oscar in 2007. And then he beats Ricky Hatton later in December of 2007. And then he didn't fight for 2 years.
Yeah.
He didn't fight for 2 years. He came back, right? And that was his big comeback fight against Marquez. And then a lot of people criticize him because, you can't make the comparison of him beating Marquez as the same as Pacquiao beat Marquez because he weight drained Marquez or as a catch weight or whatever the hell it was. But, I mean, it's like, well, he outboxed the shit out of him. Do you really think weight would have made that big of a difference?
Yeah.
And I guess that's a matter of people's opinion. Then, he didn't fight for 2 years, and then he only fought once in 2010. He only fought once in 2011. He only fought once in 2012. You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
So it's like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? It's like that's where people and during this time in 2009, 10, 11, 12, where he's only fighting once, Pacquiao's fighting 3 times at least during this period of time. So it becomes a debate of, okay, Mayweather's fighting better fighters, but he's only fighting once a year. Pacquiao's not fighting as good as fighters, but he's more active.
Yeah, but that's when it all come back to money. How much was Mayweather get for that one fight compared to Pacquiao's 3 fights?
True.
That's the problem.
True, but do historians care about how much money you made?
No, but the names. You got Manuel,
I think it's going to be
Mosley,
tough. It's going to be tough.
Cotto.
It's going to be tough to not call him the best ever when he's gone undefeated and he has that amount of Hall of Famers on his list. And the debate really comes down to Manny Pacquiao. He beat Manny Pacquiao. He beat Canelo Alvarez. You guys can say that he's young, but a lot of people say that Mayweather was old.
He watched him too.
I think that hey, Arturo, man, thanks for jumping on and thank you for the super chat, brother. I really do appreciate that. This is what I really like to do is actually talk about boxing. And unfortunately, a lot of this great boxing talk was overshadowed by Fury and Wilder and all that chaos. But it is good to get back to it. Look, I agree. I think before the Pacquiao-Mayweather fight happened, it was a closer debate when it came to the resumes. But it's like, that's why we wanted the fight, to settle it. Like, let's settle the argument. That's why people were going crazy about it. And then they fought, and I got Mayweather winning like 9 rounds to 3 on my scorecard. So it wasn't really that close. And then the crazy thing is, what and to Rafael's point here was like, they're out of their prime. They were slightly out of their prime, but the thing is Mayweather went on to fight after that, and so did Pacquiao. They both went on to fight after that fight. With Mayweather only fighting twice, Berto and McGregor. But Pacquiao went on to fight several times after the Mayweather fight, more than what Mayweather did. And so it was like, he was out of his prime when he fought Mayweather, but then he wasn't out of his prime when he went on to win after he fought Mayweather. Which one is it? So to me, it's like your man got beat. And we for me, on my channel 10 years ago, I was like, I'm telling you guys, he's going to win. And I'm telling you, it's going to be a sad day in Pacquiao heaven when he loses. And he lost. And what really pissed me off was I could have celebrated it. I could have rubbed it in their faces. I could have went crazy, and I didn't. I was like, I always told you he was going to win, and he did. And now let's, let Manny Pacquiao continue on with his great career. But then they came out and said, Floyd was running. Floyd was scared. Floyd didn't want to exchange punches and all this craziness. And I'm like, really? My whole thing is to this whole debate. I don't know how we got into this direction, but it happens. My whole thing about it is that you can say what you want about Pacquiao losing that fight, but Pacquiao had 5 years to prepare for Floyd Mayweather. Pacquiao was dreaming about Mayweather every day for 5 years.
Still is.
Right? It's like, you're telling me he didn't have ample time to prepare? You knew that he was going to do the shoulder roll. You knew that he was going to pot shot you. You knew that he was going to tie you up when you try to get off. You knew that he was going to be elusive and give you different angles and shoot the straight right hand down the pipe. You knew he was going to do this. You've been watching him fight more than just that 5 years, but in that 5 years time specifically, when you two were in your prime, and you knew what was coming.
Divine, did you ever think that he really had a shot? Because I think just Mayweather is just kryptonite to him. I don't think he ever had a shot to beating him.
I think that if they would have fought 5 years prior, a lot of people will say that, oh, Pacquiao was better then and he would have knocked out Mayweather. I say the contrary. I say that Mayweather had slowed down a bit by the time he faced Pacquiao. And I say they fought 5 years earlier when they should have fought. Back in 2000, I believe in 10 was when they probably should have fought. When Mayweather beat the dog shit out of Shane Mosley, that could have been Pacquiao. That could have been Pacquiao, in my opinion. And I think that if they would have fought when they originally were aligned, the universe aligned them to fight in 2010, Mayweather would have beat Pacquiao even worse than what he did when they actually did fight. That's my opinion.
Yeah, it's style.
I would have to disagree. I think it would have been a closer fight.
Okay.
I think strategically Floyd, waited, and I think got the fight. I still think Floyd would have won. I just think it would have been closer.
Well, let's look at just.
I don't think it was close. I don't think it was close. I know that there's a lot of, and I'm a huge Pacquiao fan, but I don't think it was close. I think Floyd clearly won, and they can say that he ran the whole entire fight, but what were you expecting? I mean, that's his style. That's what you're walking in there to beat. Exactly.
And I hate the word run. He wasn't running. It's just that people. I hate when people, because they want to see a Rocky fight. They think people are just supposed to sit there and mix it up and somebody's going to get knocked out. And that's not how boxing is. That's not how boxing is. And it's annoying.
Yeah, for sure. There's a difference between running and strategically choosing your spots, like Martin did to Mikey this last weekend.
Yep.
Yeah, he was playing boxer, but he was still scoring. He clearly won that fight.
So you're saying around the time they could have fought was around the time because basically when he fought Clotty, which was a disgusting fight to watch in my opinion, because Clotty just stood there. But if that could have been Mayweather right there, I think they fought Clotty because the Mayweather fight fell apart. And they ended up fighting Clotty. I remember it was in Dallas, Texas Stadium, and it was all hyped up. And then Clotty, all he did was just hold his hands up the entire fight. So you would have to say that Manny Pacquiao would have done better against the Mayweather who beat Shane Mosley.
So I think the Oscar Pacquiao was less competitive than the De La Hoya Pacquiao was less competitive than De La Hoya Mayweather. I think De La Hoya Mayweather was a much better fight, a much more competitive fight. Ricky Hatton, I mean, they both knocked out Hatton. Who do you guys think did better against Cotto?
Well, let me address Oscar just real quickly. Oscar, I mean, he was weight trained badly, bro, in that fight against Pacquiao. I mean, even Freddie Roach said it himself. Like, he saw the IV marks in his arms. He had to forcefully rehydrate himself, and he just looked like a shell of himself. He was terrible. Like, when the fight started, he's like, is that Oscar De La Hoya or is that his skeleton? Like, what the hell's going on? And
Divine,
yeah,
he was going to win that fight regardless, though. I don't think at his age he was going to win that fight. Pacquiao was just way too fucking fast for him, and he tried to go head in on him, and that's you can't do that with Pacquiao.
Yeah, and you know what, man? In that fight, right? I'm gonna say this. It's gonna sound funny, But in that fight against Pacquiao, you would think that Pacquiao is some sadistic motherfucker, right? But I think it's De La Hoya. I think he likes to get beat up. Like he was getting his ass beat bad. And he just kept coming. It's like he didn't even try. He didn't know what to do. He didn't want to. I mean, it was like and then it's funny I say this because now after he's retired, right? We start hearing about his personal life, about him dressing up in drag, and he likes women to tie him up and spank him and whip him. This dude, man, he's into sadism, bro. I'm telling you. When I started thinking, I'm like, nah, that can't be Oscar De La Hoya, bro. Like, I don't mean to sit up here and bash the man. And I don't, to each their own, bro. Like, if you like to dress up as women and do your thing, hey, cool. It's 2021. But what I'm saying is that it made it clear to me that this guy has some weird psychological thing in his head. You know what I mean? Like, to get beat up the way he did, it's like he likes pain. And if anybody out here,
did you really think
I'm not going to swing
fight,
this conversation into that direction, but anybody out there who knows anything about BDSM, I'm speaking real talk right now. I'm talking about real talk. If you know about anybody who knows anything about BDSM, you know what I'm saying, and I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, but do you really think he was going to win that fight? Do you really think he's going to win that fight?
Probably not. Probably not.
I remember going to a fight, watching it. I was like, De La Hoya's about to get his ass whooped, and I just knew it. It wasn't. I knew that speed that Pacquiao had, and he was going forward on Pacquiao, which I didn't rocket right into those combinations. I was like, what is this guy doing?
I'm going to be honest. I thought at first he threw the fight because there was a point where he wasn't even trying anymore. But the post came out and he said, hey, he was just too much. He was just too quick. And then at the same time, other fighters were saying, hey, Pacquiao was throwing punches from weird angles. I didn't see none of that shit coming. And I'm like, all right, I guess. But I also thought that De La Hoya probably gave up pretty early in that fight.
He was too slow.
I mean, I think that he knew probably after the second round that it's over. He felt Pacquiao's speed. He knew that he wasn't. I think everything just came into play. His age, and look, man, Oscar De La Hoya has been in some wars, man.
Yeah.
He has been in some straight up wars,
serious wars. Yeah.
And it's like it's just a fighter knows when it's their time, and I just think it's one of those things where it's just like he knew it was over, but he had enough pride and what have you to stay in there until he couldn't go on anymore, and he wasn't going to get knocked out. He wasn't going to quit, and that's just what it was. It was sad. It was sad to see. I mean, anytime I see a fighter go through that, it's sad to see. One thing that I remember my dad, when I was like 12, 13 years old, we're sitting down watching ESPN Classics, because back then you didn't have YouTube, right? So we're watching ESPN Classics, and they were showing the Larry Holmes versus Muhammad Ali fight.
Hey, Devon, I had to get out of here.
Oh, yeah, okay, brother. Yeah, and my dad was like getting emotional watching it when Larry Holmes was just beating up Muhammad Ali like that. One of my dad's like heroes growing up in the 60s and 70s. And I'm watching it and I'm thinking, damn, I didn't really register it to me because I knew who Muhammad Ali was, but I didn't have that attachment to him like my dad did, who grew up in that era. But then when I see, like, now that I see it as I'm an adult now, when Oscar De La Hoya got beat up the way he did, and we've seen it from other fighters, they get beat up the way they do coming towards the end of their careers, it's never a fun thing to watch. And I don't think that fight should have ever happened, in my opinion. Oscar was clearly done. I think he gave it his all when he was preparing for Floyd Mayweather. I think he knew that was like his last hurrah, and he put everything he could into that fight. And as a Floyd Mayweather fan, If Oscar didn't abandon the jab, he could have beat Floyd. And I think Oscar shot himself in the foot. I mean, it was a close fight up until the point where Mayweather started to land clean shots in the middle to late rounds, and which willed him the victory, which obviously catapulted him to get that decision in the end. But he was doing what you should do to try to beat Mayweather, which is what Maidana tried to do. Was take him to the ropes, go to the body. Don't let him breathe. Don't let him set his feet. Don't let him get comfortable. And then Oscar said it in the fight, right? He's like, my jab was working and I went away from it. I don't know why I did, but I did. And so it's crazy how boxing works sometimes. But yeah, man, did you have any thoughts, Rafael, while you're in here? We kind of got sidetracked a little bit, but we were talking about Plant and Canelo. Did you have any thoughts about that fight?
Yeah, I have just one more thought about Pacquiao and Floyd, just because that's one of the last things that we were just talking about. I think it's unarguable to wonder who was the better boxer. I think clearly Floyd is the better boxer, and I think arguably the best ever. I think you can make a claim that Pacquiao had a better career because of the type of fights that he had, and like you mentioned, the amount of fights that he had.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think that now I touched on it a little bit when Pacquiao was getting ready to fight Ugas, or he's going to fight Spence, and then that fell through. And then he fought Ugas. And then I went live after that fight, and I told people that Pacquiao fans, you should be thankful that wasn't Spence. Because look what Ugas did to him. What do you think Spence would have done to him? Spence attacking the body the way he does, being a southpaw as well. Pacquiao hadn't fought a southpaw in like 13 years or some shit. A very long time since Pacquiao fought a southpaw. And Earl Spence hits a lot harder than Ugas does. And so, stylistically, okay, Ugas, the Cuban style, he's a bit more slick. Yeah, I get that. I just feel that Earl would have really, really hurt Pacquiao badly. And it would have been a conversation where we were just talking about, Oscar De La Hoya getting beat up by Pacquiao. We maybe have seen a reverse of that. This Pacquiao was toward the end of his career. Clearly not the same. I don't know how you feel about it, Rafael, but for me, I was watching Pacquiao. I was like, it's just not the same Pacquiao anymore. He's reached that point. He couldn't let his hands go. He has a lot of pride. He's tough. That is the last thing that goes. I mean, you can be 60, 70 years old. I'm sure that Jake LaMotta, when he was 80, still thought that he could fight. There's that part of you never leaves. You have that in you. You're born with that. You die with that. But he couldn't deliver tools anymore. And Ugas was just faster, quicker, and I just, with Earl Spence even being younger and faster and more powerful than what Ugas is. And a lot of Pacquiao fans got upset. How dare you talk about Pacquiao this way? And I'm like, no, I'm talking about Pacquiao this way because I don't want to see Pacquiao go out like that. It was already hard enough to watch Ugas do what he did to Pacquiao. So, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but I feel like it was a good thing, mysteriously enough, that he didn't fight Spence. What do you think about that?
I'm super happy for Ugas, and I hope he gets the Spence fight. Spence making it worse for Pacquiao. Yeah, I mean, it's tough, right? We'd have to see it because, I thought Porter Spence was pretty close, even though I think Spence took the nod easily. I think Ugas Porter was a really good fight. And what you think about that one?
Spence Porter?
Ugas.
Ugas.
Porter.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, Ugas, man, I knew he was decent. But he surprised me, man. I was like, this guy's good, man. Ugas is good.
Ugas is a dog, and Porter's a dog.
Yeah, yeah. And, the welterweight division is just stacked right now. Absolutely stacked. You got Crawford and Porter coming up here soon. You got Spence. He's waiting. Supposedly he's coming back in February. You got Ugas there. I mean, it's just, and then you still got Keith Thurman there, supposedly. I don't know what the hell he's doing. You got Danny Garcia, who is probably just ready and happy to fight anybody who's willing to fight him. And so you just got that division is absolutely stacked, and we needed undisputed in that division badly. We need to find out who's the best. And Ugas has made a beautiful claim. Hey, he beat Pacquiao, a guy that was up on the top for years. So he's got a claim now. And I think most people have it either Spence, Crawford, even though Crawford's moving up. If he beats Porter, I think he has a stronger claim to being the best welterweight. But most people have Earl. Now Ugas is there. Porter. Some people still like Keith Thurman. I mean, technically speaking, Keith has only lost to Pacquiao. So, people, I mean, I just don't like the fact that Keith is not active. That's kind of irritating to me personally. But it's stacked.
I think they need to fight, man. They need to fight. I think we really missed the prime opportunity to see a prime Spence versus prime Bud. Those guys are not getting any younger. I know Bud's 30, 31. I know Spence is in his late 20s too. And then you have a lot of great talent coming right underneath. I mean, Josh Taylor is considering moving up and challenging that welterweight division. We have Virgil Ortiz that I think will give a lot of those welterweights a lot of trouble with the amount of brute force that guy delivers. So I think at the end of the day, to keep boxing great, I think we need to see those fights, honestly. And again, like I mentioned earlier, I think it goes back to the aficionados, the people that are following boxing to want to see these fights and have their favorite fighter, even if they take an L.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, as ironic and or crazy as it sounds or seems, we are the alternative media out here, man. And believe it or not, YouTube has changed a lot over the past 5 or 6 years, and we have a voice more than ever before. Before, when YouTube first came around, it was just a bunch of random dudes talking about boxing. But now with the power of the internet, and these content creators are better, they've developed skills over the years to get their content out there, and they've got the technology and the software, and they got studios with microphones and headphones, and it's like everybody has their own little studio, their own little little podcast, boxing podcast or whatever, right? So fighters pay attention. Fighters listen to certain content creators out here. I promise you that they do. Promoters listen. Managers listen. And so more than ever, our voice matters much more than it ever has before. And back in the day, it was all like newspapers. And then when the internet came out, it was like news articles and things like that came on the internet. And so they tried to gauge what the fans wanted based off of, just word of mouth. But now our voice is actually being heard. We're out here saying these are the fights that we want. And we got to continue, to Rafael's point here, we got to continue doing that. We got to continue to, express our discontent with these fights not happening or fights that probably shouldn't happen. And we have to continue to do that because, like I said, believe me, fighters, promoters, managers all pay attention. Now, take a quick look at the rankings here according to Ring TV. I got Earl at 1. He's got the IBF and WBC. Crawford's got the WBO. Ugas has got the WBA. And then you got Porter there at 4. Ortiz has moved up to 5. I remember him being at like 8 or 9 not too long ago. So he's 5 now. Danny Garcia 6, Jaron Ennis at 7. I'm terrible with these European Eastern names. Kudratilo Abduknavrov. I know I slaughtered that. And then Stanonis at 9, and then David Admison is at 10. So this division is stacked. I mean, you can just stop right here at 7, and it's stacked, right?
A lot of great fights right there.
So that's huge. Now, I said not too long ago after Virgil Ortiz won his most recent fight, the fight that I think that should happen is Danny Garcia, Virgil Ortiz. Because that's a win-win for both of them. If Virgil wins, I beat a guy that has been at one point in time a top 3 in the division. And if he's able to knock him out, that's big because Danny's never been knocked out in his professional career. So that's another huge benefit for Virgil Ortiz. And for those of you who don't know, currently Virgil is 18-0 with 18 KOs. So if there's a guy that can do it, it should be him. He's got a 100% KO ratio.
He's got the style for sure.
Yeah. And Danny, you know he wants to go back into the conversation. So if he beats a young up-and-coming guy in Virgil Ortiz, he's right back up in there. He's right in there with Crawford, Porter, Ugas, all of them. Just like that in one fight. Boom. Look at who I just beat. Right? So that's a huge fight. Then you got Earl Spence is waiting. So he doesn't have a fight yet. He's waiting. He's supposed to be coming back in February, or he'll be ready by February. Doesn't mean he's going to fight in February. He's cleared to fight by February. So why not make that fight? Why not Ortiz Garcia, winner of that fight, Spence?
I like that.
Then you have Crawford Porter happening here in, late November, right? So Crawford Porter, late November. Now you got that. So if Crawford wins, he retains his WBO. Then Crawford can either fight Ugas to grab those 2 belts, put the WBA and WBO together, and then they fight the winner of Earl Spence, and rather it's Ortiz or Garcia.
Super fight.
That's how it should be.
Great.
Now, yeah, and then you got Ennis there, and Ennis, he's 27-0 with 25 KOs himself. So he's got like a 90% KO ratio. So he can fight maybe one of the losers of these, what I just mentioned. Right? So he can fight the loser of Terrence Crawford and Sean Porter, or he can fight the loser of Danny Garcia, Virgil Ortiz. Somebody's got to continue to go down the rankings, and somebody needs to go up. So if Danny beats Ortiz is still young in his career to where he still has a name and marketable enough to go and fight Ennis. And if he loses to Ennis, that means he takes 2 back-to-back losses, then he drops. Ennis moves up. That's the way it's supposed to work. Right? And I don't have a problem if they want to do Ennis Garcia either. That's fine too. But Garcia needs to fight either one of these 2 guys right now. Ortiz or Ennis needs to happen right now. And the winner of that fight should get a title shot. Now, you remember, Rafael, back in the day, not back in the day, but, I don't know, like 10 years ago or so, when they had the, what was it called? The Super 6 middleweight tournament or whatever it was.
Yeah.
I like that. I enjoyed that. Because it's like one big tournament, round robin. If you win, you advance. If you lose, you're done. Why not do a big welterweight tournament?
Yeah, the problem comes with promotions, I think, primarily with the problem between the promotions, I think. Spence, like he says, walking across the street and making it happen.
For
Yeah.
me, creativity
Yeah,
starts with what
I
ifs.
agree completely.
What if-
And you look at the welterweight division, it's just like you want to pull your hair out, right? It's like, how are we not
Such a
getting
great
these
division.
fights? It's like, how are we not getting these fights? It's insane. It's like we have a little bit of a taste because we're getting Porter and Crawford. And and since we're on that topic, which was in the title of this live stream, it took us a while to get there. But for me, in a nutshell, I haven't made an official prediction of video about this fight yet. Look, if Porter loses, that's a huge blow for him in his career. He's because that basically means every time he's had a big fight, he's lost. And I feel like he's got to get knocked down a few notches. And if Crawford wins, fair shake to Crawford, man. And he deserves to be in that mix of unifying or be in that undisputed conversation there in the welterweights. Now, if Porter pulls it off, then yeah, he is similar to Danny Garcia. He swings himself right back in the conversation, which is what he wants and needs desperately for his career. Now, as far as the fight itself, Porter, he's going to come. He's going to come to fight. He's going to give it his all. And I would imagine, and I do believe he is training his ass off for this fight. I'm telling you right now. Porter is putting every little ounce of energy and dedication into this fight. He knows he's been around long enough in his career. Porter at this point is a veteran now. He's fought everybody. And he knows that this is going to be a tough fight, if not one of his toughest. He knows what Bud brings to the table. One advantage that Porter has is I do believe that he is the natural bigger fighter. He's naturally the bigger fighter, and he has the work rate to beat a guy like Bud. You got to be in Bud's face nonstop for every round if it goes 12, if need be. You can't let your foot off the gas. I remember when he fought Spence. He was trying to come forward, and Spence was piecing him up. Then he started boxing, and he was doing a little bit better, and it made the fight very competitive. Because I think it surprised Spence a little bit. He's like, oh shit, okay. And I thought he wanted to come at me. He doesn't want to come at me now. I don't think, in my opinion, that will work against Bud. I don't think boxing on his toes and trying to outbox Bud Crawford is a good idea. I think he needs to come right at him, put his head right in his chest, and force Bud to work on the inside and force Bud to beat you at your own game. And all he's got a chin. Porter has a chin. He's tough. And so that part I'm expecting. I'm expecting that. For Bud, I think he knows that he's facing a guy who is going to come after him. And he's facing a guy who has experience now. And he knows he's going into a fight as well. But I think that if Bud is able to keep Sean at the end of his jab and keep him at range and set up shots, he should win relatively comfortably. It's just a matter of, can he sustain it? Can he enforce his will and keep that space? Because it's all about space with Porter. If you let Porter take over the space like he did against Paulie Malignaggi, when Paulie wants to move and Paulie wants to throw in shots and bounce out, if he cuts off that space, he makes it very difficult for you. So if you continue to maintain that real estate, and we all know Bud can go switch. He can switch it up, orthodox southpaw, pumping the jab with the right hand, pumping the jab with the left hand. Big uppercuts when Porter tries to duck underneath, catch him with those uppercuts. And we know Bud has ruthless uppercuts when fighters come in. So I feel like if he's able to establish that, it should be a relatively easy win. I don't see a knockout in this fight. But if there is a knockout, I would actually say Porter. Porter might get a little sneaky one over the top and hurt Crawford. And I know a lot of people don't agree. They're like, oh, what are you talking about? If anybody's going to get a knockout, it's going to be Crawford. I don't think so. I don't. I think if Crawford wins, it'd be a 12-round decision. He'll just outwork Porter when it comes to landing clean punches. And that's the way I see it. So what do you got for us, Rafael?
On Porter, super big fan of Porter, primarily because that guy don't duck nobody, and he gives a great fight every single time. If he loses, does that ruin his career? No, I think like you said, I think it does drop him a notch. But I think he primarily becomes a gatekeeper. After all, he would be going against what many consider one of the best pound for pound, and with Bud's experience and his talent, I don't think it would be a bad loss for Porter, even if he were to lose. On Bud's side, getting back to Porter, I think how you said he's working his ass off. I agree. I saw a interview that he had where they asked him if he thought this was his biggest challenge, and he said, "Absolutely, this is my biggest challenge." And I think very few people would disagree with that. I think this is his biggest challenge. On Bud's side, I think Bud, at least I hope he's here to make a statement. I think a lot of people across the boxing world acknowledge his talent and his ability. They just feel that he hasn't gone up against the right competition. And I think Bud is going to seize the opportunity and I hope try to make a statement by going for the KO over Porter. But I think hell of a fight. I think it's going to be great for the fans. At least I'm definitely going to watch it and hope for a great fight. I'm hoping for a Bud KO. That's what I'm hoping for. I hope that Bud makes a statement and proves that he is one of the best pound for pound.
Yeah, I have no problem with that breakdown. At the end of the day, I think the ultimate goal for anybody, whether you're a Porter, Crawford, Spence, or whatever fan that you support, I'm more of a Spence guy, but I think the ultimate goal for everyone is to find an undisputed champion at welterweight. And if we can't get undisputed, we should start. We got to get a little bit more unifications going on. We got to find out who's the best in this division. There's just too much talent in this division for it to be stagnant like this. And I think that should be the ultimate goal, despite whoever you like in that division. That's what it should be. Yeah, go ahead.
Do you think that Porter or that Spence does better against Porter than Bud? Do you think Bud does better against Porter than Spence did?
That's a good question. Yes. I think Bud will do better because for some reason when I go back and watch the Spence Porter fight, I feel like Spence was a little bit out of his element. I think he was trying to prove something. I think he was trying to it was like he wanted to prove a point that he can stop Porter. And he kind of went away from boxing a little bit and kind of played at Porter's game. And then he did enough to win the fight. It was a close fight, though. But I do think he won it. But, yes, I do think that Bud will be more disciplined. I don't think Bud will be drawn into Porter and Porter trying to rough him up and Porter trying to overwhelm him with trying. I don't think he's gonna. I think Bud is just a really disciplined fighter. I think he's disciplined in life. And we've heard different things about Spence. You know, he likes to party, he likes to drink a little bit, drives his car, and almost kills himself. right? So there's that. But I think that Bud is like just disciplined in life, and I think he takes this very seriously. And I think, to your point, Rafael, I think that he does want to prove that he's the best. I think he's wanted to prove that. I think that promotion companies and different things have set him back from being able to prove it. And I just feel like now this is his chance. And if he beats Porter convincingly and better than what Spence did, then it's like, damn, maybe he is the best. And then it's kind of forces Spence to like, hey, yeah, now you got to fight because this dude just did a better job with Porter than what you did. And let Ennis and Ortiz and these guys fight down there. Let them sort that out. But you need to handle Bud. And whoever handles this, then those guys down there between Danny Garcia, Ennis, and Virgil, they move up and get a title shot. But you got to handle Bud. If Bud gets past Porter and does it more convincingly, I don't want to see no ducking or dodging by Earl Spence. And I'm saying that as an Earl Spence fan, okay, because enough is enough. All right, we already had an unfortunate setback when it came to Spence anyways, when he couldn't fight Pacquiao. But that, I mean, let's be honest. Who would you rather see fight? Spence and Pacquiao, or Spence and Bud, or, you know, Spence and some, you know, like, really, like all due respect to Pacquiao, but Pacquiao's not really supposed to win that fight. If he wins, it's kind of like, oh, well, damn, we got to hit the pause button again because, you know, Pacquiao keeps winning. But he's not supposed to win that fight. We want you to fight a guy who you might not beat, where you have a good chance to lose. That's what it's all about. And that guy, to me, is Bud Crawford. That's who it's always been. It's always been Bud Crawford for the past 3 or 4 years, the guy to beat Earl Spence. I think stylistically, Porter's a bad matchup. I think that if they rematch, Spence beats Porter again. I just think that Spence beats everybody except for Bud. Or I would say Bud is the strongest competitor, has the strongest advantage, I guess you can say, to beat Spence. The best chance. Because styles make fights. And so Bud can box, he can punch, he can fight on the inside, he can fight on the outside, he can move, he knows how to be strategically, he knows how to strategically tie you up. He's just brilliant. He's just brilliant in the ring. Spence will have the advantage I think he has an advantage at welterweight. Okay, he's a true welterweight. I think he has an advantage in power. I think if anybody can hurt Bud, it will be Spence. And I think that's what makes this fight interesting. And that's why we got to see it. So Spence is like, hey, he's recovering from his eye surgery, and you better know he might even show up to the fight.
Hope he does.
Spence might actually show up to the fight. He might be ringside to Crawford Porter. So you know he's going to be watching, and you know damn good and well all the reporters are going to be going to Spence after that fight, especially if Bud wins. If Bud wins, they're going to be like, oh, so, hey, so what's up, man? Hey, we heard you can fight in February. And they're going to go to Bud, too, and be like, we all know that you want Spence. All the fans, everybody, it's Spence. So I don't see Bud beating around the bush. I would be very disappointed if Bud beat around the bush and said, oh, I don't know, I'm going to talk to my team. Nobody wants to hear that shit. We're not talking to the team. This is the fight. So, if you win, it's like, remember Mike Tyson when he called out Lennox Lewis? He said, Lennox, I'm coming for you. That's what I want to hear. That's what I want to hear. When Lennox was, when Tyson said, Lennox, I'm coming for you. I'm going to eat your children. That type of shit. That's what I want to hear. That's what I want to hear from Bud Crawford. So there's no denying it. So promoters can't say, oh, well, we don't know what Crawford wants. Crawford will get the mic at the end of that fight. And that is his opportunity. And you know what I would love that we haven't seen in a long time is for Spence to go into the ring after the Bud Porter fight, if Bud wins, and do a little face-off, talk a little shit. Because that would make me feel a little bit more confident that the fight is actually going to happen. One of the biggest reasons why Fury and Wilder ever happened was because, y'all remember that? Fury went into the ring.
Yeah.
When fighters go into the ring, promoters probably don't like it very much because it forces their hand. Right? But when fighters do that, when Shane Mosley went into the ring of Mayweather, what fight did we get next? Mayweather-Mosley. So that's what I want to see. I want to see Spence go into the ring and call out Bud and be like, yo, it's time to make the fight happen. That will make me sleep very nicely at night if that happens.
I think we have a good chance of getting that, especially if Bud is able to have a signature win and have a definitive win over Porter. Because the PBC top rank thing would go away, them not working together because they're working together on this one. And, I think last time that they tried to get together, I think one of the biggest obstacles was the split where Spence was asking, a 60-40 split from Bud, saying that Bud couldn't put ass in seats. And I would have to agree. I know that Bud definitely doesn't have the same appeal as Spence. But I think if he has a signature win here against Porter and has a definitive win and does it better than Spence, I don't see why they don't do that fight, because I agree with you. I think it's a 50-50 fight, and really what the sport really needs is good competition. These fights where it's 50-50, where you don't know who's going to win, because that is what brings people in. When people know who's going to win or who's likely to win, they're not going to pay for that pay-per-view. I don't know if this stat is true or not, but they said that Wilder Fury 3 only had like 600K buys. Do you know if that's true?
I've heard that too. I don't know how true it is, because a lot of these numbers get twisted and pulled in different directions to fit narratives, unfortunately. But I heard that as well. And to be honest with you, if that is true, I'm a little bit shocked. I think it's partly to do because I don't think UK fans were that interested in it. I knew they couldn't come to the States because of the fly. They couldn't fly in because of COVID or whatever, supposedly. So not a lot of UK fans came in to watch the fight live. I heard a lot of rumblings that UK fans just weren't that interested in it to go actually pay for the pay-per-view.
Right, and that's
I'm sure a lot of people fucking live streamed it for free, but I don't think they would go, because they just thought the second fight went the way that it went, and it's like, I'm not going to pay for a third fight knowing what happened in the second fight. You know what I mean? Now in America, yeah, there's a lot of people going for Wilder and probably paid for the fight, but I just think that in trilogy sometimes it happens that way. It's a little bit unfortunate, in my opinion, for Wilder, because I feel like the second fight was one-sided, and it kind of pushed Wilder's market to the side a little bit, and it made it more of a difficult sell. It's a bit unfortunate in that regard. I mean, they got paid regardless, so I guess it doesn't really matter in that perspective. Both Fury and Wilder got paid handsomely for the third fight, but in the sense of the fans, I think the fans were a little bit misled, because look at the fight that we got. It was a great fight.
Great fight.
I was telling people, if you pay for this, there should be no reason why you should be disappointed. The undercard, there were great fights too.
The build-up was great too. I don't
The
understand.
build-up, the build-up was good. Everything, I mean, everything was good about it. It's how you want it to go. I mean, it could have been a little bit better. They could have possibly tried to do like a 24/7 style, have him sit down and talk shit. That would have been nice to see. But it wasn't bad. The promotion side of it wasn't bad. But it's like I'm watching the fight and I'm thinking to myself, like, how could you not want to pay for this? Why would you even take the risk of not paying for this? And if anybody's out there struggling to get a live stream, I don't feel sorry for you. You deserve to not watch it. You deserve not to see that if you couldn't get a live stream up for free. But I hear what you're saying. You know, one of the things that I hate talking about the most is the promotional side of boxing. And there's a lot of channels out here. They spend a lot of time talking about money and promotion and management and this fighter and this should fight that fighter and this is the purse split that it should be and it should be on this network and that network. I hate talking about that stuff. I hate it because it's just so subjective and just like it just stresses me out, man. I'm just like, why am I even spending my energy like talking about people who don't care about me? They don't care about me as a boxing fan. And quite frankly, they don't care about the fighters either. They care about the damn selves. So I don't know why channels spend so much time about trying to figure out what's right and what's wrong. I mean, it's all wrong. If we don't get the fights that we want, it's wrong. Period. And I don't want to hear none of this. Oh, well, it's PBC. Oh no, it's DAZN. And oh no, it's Top Rank. Like I just can't wrap my head around it. It's like it shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter. And when you got a fight like Crawford Spence 50-50, that shouldn't even be a negotiation. That shouldn't be like, can we make this fight happen? Are you dumb? Like, you don't even have to promote it. Just say, this is what we're, you just put it out there and people are going to buy it because it's just one of those fights. Right? I don't understand why. And it's like, it's to the contrary of they end up pushing and trying to sell fights that are not 50-50. They put a lot of time and energy in fights that are not really 50-50. Like Mayweather Guerrero. I remember them building that fight. I'm like, really? Y'all seriously trying to convince me that Guerrero's got a chance against Mayweather? Robert Guerrero? Andre Berto? No disrespect to Mayweather, but I mean, damn, like and people were buying that shit. You're telling me you're willing to buy that when Mayweather's the overwhelmingly favorite. Hey, you're talking about the 50-50. We're talking about 80-20, really, in my opinion. It's 80-20. Guerrero's got a slight puncher's chance. That's about it. So it's like you're willing to pay money for that, but you don't want to pay money for Spence Crawford?
Yeah, Divine. I mean, look, I think it goes back to what we were talking about. I think you're 100% correct. People can read through the bullshit. I mean, you can dress it up and put a ball on it, but they're not going to buy crap. After all, these pay-per-views they're not cheap, especially if we're having a huge pay-per-view, once a month. And recently it has been once a month. So, they're going to pick and choose the best fights, the best chances to get the best type of fight. And I think that's the reason why we need that 50-50 fight there, or try to figure out who the best boxer is there in the welterweight division, especially because we have so many great fighters there that are still in their prime, and we need to really figure out who is the best. And trying to segue into another class, Canelo, and kind of staying somewhat on topic. I think it's another reason why I don't think Canelo Plant is going to do very well as far as numbers wise. I don't know if you follow the UFC, but at the exact same day, we're going to have Colby Covington, Kamaru Usman, a great fight in the UFC, and I think that that Plant Canelo does poorly. I think specifically because I think it's a bad matchup. Yes, Plant is coming in undefeated, but the record shows otherwise. He hasn't really gone up against the competition that Canelo has, and I think very people believe that it is a real fight, and odds, kind of reflect that too. What's your thoughts on that?
I haven't even really. I just been so fixated on the fight. I'm excited for the fight. I said earlier in the live stream that to me, this is the second biggest fight to Fury Wilder. Like I am stoked for Canelo and Plant. I can't wait for that fight. So for me, I haven't really thought about the promotional side of things on whether it would sell or not. But now that you mention it, yeah, I think it's possibly because I don't think a lot of people think that Plant's a threat. I don't really think that people think he's a threat. I think they can't sell it because not enough people know about Plant. I don't know. That's my guess. I mean, I'm not an expert on why fights sell or don't sell. Maybe I'm not a casual fan either. So I think Plant does have a chance. So it doesn't make sense on why people wouldn't think he had a chance. But I can see why casuals would think that, oh, this guy Plant, he's just another Billy Joe Saunders. He doesn't stand a chance. So, yeah, I don't know how well they'll do, and I don't know what their gauge is as far as like what is good for them in this promotion. Is it 500K buys? Is it 800? Is it $1 million? I mean, I don't know the gauge. It's not a Canelo Triple G. It's not going to hit those numbers for sure. But I think it should still do decently. And the thing about fights is I've noticed this on YouTube as well. People start getting antsy and they get ready to spend money when it's about a week away. When it gets about a week before the fight, when you get enough people talking about it, because right now a lot of people we're talking about it in a live stream, little casual talk. But when content creators when it gets fight week, when content creators start dropping stuff and then Instagram starts promoting it and Facebook and there's that whole fight week is when really people are like, that's when they really make their decision on whether they're going to buy the fight or not. So it's really going to come down to a little bit of how we as content creators put the fight out there and hey, you guys need to buy this fight. It's going to be a great fight. And also how the promotional side promotes it. They've got to do a good job. They've got to figure out a way to convince people that this is going to be an entertaining and interesting fight. And basically it comes down to, it's really about promoting Caleb Plant, to be honest with you. It's letting people know that Caleb Plant is a threat and he can pull it off and people have to, or not people, but the promotional companies have to sell that idea. Especially for Caleb Plant's side and his team. They've got to sell it. They've got to let them know that we're really truly a threat. Now, the press conference did help it a little bit because a lot of that shit went viral, about the whole slapping each other but even that, people laughed at it because they're like, oh, well, yeah, Plant tried to slap him, but did he hit him? Did he not hit him? I don't know if he actually hit him or not.
They both
Canelo
slap each other. It looks fake.
Yeah, but then Canelo landed a better shot, and that's what's going to happen in the fight. So this Plant guy, he doesn't stand a chance. I'm not going to spend my money on this. I'm not going to spend my money. If Canelo's able to slap him, I'm not going to spend my money on this. So that's kind of how I've heard people say that. I've read comments on Instagram, people saying it. People, easy work for Canelo. Easy fight for Canelo. If Canelo's able to slap him like this at a press conference, then it's going to be an easy fight. And I'm thinking to myself, well, y'all saw the John Wick suit that Plant was wearing, right? I don't think he's moving very well in this tight-ass suit. So it's like, are people that dumb? Like, really? I thought it's great. I thought it's great for them to talk a little bit of shit and have a little, drama. I thought it's great for promotion. Why not? And, a lot of people get bent out of shape. Arturo was on here earlier, and we were talking about the PEDs and stuff. And that was one of the things that Plant, was coming out with and said, you're a cheater. How is that not good for promotion? Now, you don't have to like it. That might be a thorn in your side. But that shit's good for promotion. And I hate to say it, but Plant's right. Plant's right. The dude did pop. And the guy said at the press conference, he was like, do you think Canelo cheated? And he's like, Did he not get suspended for 6 months? Thank you.
It's facts, right?
It's like, I mean, are you? It's a rhetorical question. So that stuff's good for fights, right? Because it builds animosity. Then you have the whole America versus Mexico thing going on, right? So you have everything you need, but do people have enough faith in Plant to actually go out and spend their money? That's the question, I think, when it comes to it. I mean, I'm going to pay for it, obviously, but I don't.
I'm gonna pay for it too. But I just because I'm Mexican, I'm in various Mexican groups, and I can tell you a lot of even Mexicans don't consider Plant a threat, and not in a bad way. Just like they're not willing to pay for the fight, you know.
Exactly.
Which at the end hurts numbers. But do I think Plant stands a chance? Yeah, I think he stands a chance. I think he stands maybe a little bit better than a puncher's chance. I just don't think that there's any real win in Plant's career that we could kind of gauge where he's at professionally to really putting him up against arguably the pound per pound right now. And I think all the drugs, you know, the PED stuff, and I think it's great. I think even the slaps there at the press conference were great, and I've talked to a lot of people where they think that's staged. PBC is putting up a bunch of money for this fight, and they're looking for a return too. I find it kind of strange how they didn't put anybody in between. There was nobody around, and and they slapped each other, which is questionable. You know, why would they? I mean, it was smart, obviously, right? They're professional fighters. They don't want to hurt each other, really, right? Because they really want to do it in the ring. But it's questionable. If you really have beef and somebody approaches you like that, I think almost instinctively as a boxer, you're going to close your fist and punch. But I mean, that's just my opinion, obviously.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I'm not surprised they slapped each other. I think for Plant, for him, he's thinking, I'm gonna bitch slap this dude. I think that was his intent. I just feel like, you know, you pushed me, and Canelo pushed on. He didn't push. He pushed him pretty hard. I mean, he put some weight behind.
Really
that
hard.
push.
He almost fell off the stage.
Yeah, I mean, Plant went flying. So Plant was like, oh, okay, and And the thing about it is that if Canelo didn't pull back those 3 inches, he would have straight up smacked the shit out of Canelo. If Canelo, I mean, he wound up on that. Like Plant wound up and was trying to hit him hard with the open hand slap. And if Canelo didn't pull back, that shit would have hit, right? Now, for Canelo, returning with the slap, that's when I'm kind of like, because if you're Canelo, you pushed him, so your heart rate's elevated. You're like, you know what? And then the dude tries to slap you. That's kind of disrespectful. So I'm more surprised that Canelo didn't close his fist. To be honest, for me personally, I'm glad they didn't. I'm glad it was there. I'm glad it wasn't punches, because it's not just like taking a shot to the face and busting your eye up, but it's also breaking your hand. And, you know, what people have to understand, these are world-class athletes. When they punch something, they punch stuff hard. There's a reason why these guys wear gloves. Okay? They break their hands. It happens all the time. So I think that's part of it. Instinctively, maybe. It's like, you know, he tried to slap me, so I'm going to try to slap him. I don't know, but it's a very, like, split-second decision by Canelo to not punch him. So I can kind of see why people are like, oh, maybe that was staged. But you know what? To be honest, I don't give a shit if it's staged or not. I like watching it. And if it was staged, they did good at acting, and it was great.
I think,
you know,
go ahead.
Yeah. It reminds me a little bit of Mayweather Mosley during their press conference. They were like pushing and shoving each other, and it got intense. But that shit sold the fight. I remember I was in the States during that time, and I went to fucking Buffalo Wild Wings with my dad to watch that fight, and that place was packed for Mayweather Mosley. And most people and you had to pay for like a little, you can get some wings, and then you pay, basically it's your donation to watch the fight live on the screen and all that. So most people were Mosley fans. There's like a very small group of us that were Mayweather fans because everybody wants to see Mayweather lose, right? But that place was going crazy. And I remember when Mosley landed that right hand and almost dropped Mayweather, I was like, I had my moment of like, shit, but, so when these press conferences go the way they go, it's usually a good sign. Like when you see Porter, Crawford, they're all nice, I respect him. He respects me. Okay, I don't know if that's going to sell the fight. I mean, their names might sell it because people want to see it, but it's not like what Stevenson did to Herring and try to take the belt off his shoulder. Those little things make a difference when it comes to promoting a fight. And people are like, "Oh yeah, but Devon, this ain't the WWE." No, the difference is they actually do fight though. They talk shit. They do some crazy stuff during press conferences, but then they actually do fight. In the WWE, they don't. It's all theatrics. It's just boxing is like theatrics. When Muhammad Ali used to say the things he did, he sold fights. And I think that's when promoters were like, ooh, we can use a guy who talks a little shit. Right? And it all started with him, and he was getting ready to fight Sonny Liston. And he's all, look at this big bear, this big black bear. I'm gonna beat him up. I'm gonna, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. He can't catch me. And he's like,
That
at the
mummy
weigh-in,
can't catch me.
Yeah, he's a mummy, and all this stuff. But he's like, they're at the weigh-in, they're weighing in, and he's like talking all this crazy shit. And Sonny Liston is not saying nothing. And then all of a sudden, as Sonny Liston is getting ready to walk out, he turns around. He says, "I can't wait to beat the shit out of you," or whatever, right? And just yelled, and everyone was like, "Oh," right? And then all the newspaper writers were like writing their articles, and people were going crazy. That's how you sell fights. And it's like when Roy Jones Jr. and the things that he used to do, Mike Tyson, the things that he like going up to Lennox Lewis. Nobody really thought that Tyson was going to beat Lewis, except like the real diehard Tyson fans. Most boxing fans was like, Lewis is active. He's too big. He's too skilled. We don't know what kind of person Tyson is coming out of prison, right? But that fight sold because y'all remember what happened. Mike Tyson out there saying, "I'll eat your children," and he said, "I'll fuck your asshole alive, you faggots," and like screaming at the top, like all these explicit stuff that he was saying. And it sold the fight. Because they're like, oh, well, maybe Mike Tyson is back. Maybe he's serious now. Maybe he's coming for blood. Right? And so boxing has been plagued with unfortunate events in 2021. Fights being canceled, fights being postponed, not getting the fights we want, injuries, COVID. And we've lost out. And now boxing's trying to make up for it here towards the end of the year, right? Which is good. I mean, it's good, but we have to keep this momentum going. We have to keep this momentum. It can't just be like, we got Fury Wilder, great. Now we get Plant, Canelo, great. We get Porter, Crawford, great. We get Herring, Stevenson, great. We get Tank Davis and Romero, great. And then all of a sudden, it dies down again. His boxing has been known to do that. So hopefully, we can learn from this, because promoters, promotion companies, managers, fighters, everyone involved in boxing in 2021 didn't make very much money. They didn't make very much money in 2021 with the fights being canceled, the fights being postponed, promotional companies not being able to make deals, arenas and their mandates with vaccines or whatever the hell was going on. They just couldn't make fights happen. It was just so hard. So now, hopefully, we can end the year strong, and it reminds people how important it is to make these big fights happen. So, yeah, those are my thoughts. I see my man Hamza. You made it in here late. I appreciate you. Dr. Hook, I see you making your comments in here. Respect to you, sir. And Mario Holland, what up to you, and blessings to you and your family as well, sir. Thank you for dropping by tonight. Super late, I know, for you guys in the States. I appreciate you guys taking the time out of your night to join the conversation. It's good to get back to some real boxing conversation instead of all the politics. So, yeah, any final thoughts, Rafael?
Yeah. First, I would like to thank you for having me on, and for the great discussion that we had. I think all these conversations are productive for boxing community, and having dialogue and communicating with each other like men about our disagreements and our different points of views, because it's just opinion, and a lot of boxing is subjective. Is the reason why we have controversial decisions and everything else, and in order to continue to make boxing great, we need to have these conversations. But before I leave, I wanted to make my prediction for the Plant Canelo. I think this fight's going to come down to experience. I think primarily because I feel that Canelo has been a true professional since the age of 16. He's been fighting grown men since the age of 16, and he has figured out what works best for him. He has experienced a lot of different styles, and arguably, I think he had a couple. I gave Triple G the first fight. I think he clearly lost the first fight against Triple G. I think Lara were really tough fights, but I think all that stuff kind of helped him develop into this bull that he has become. And I think the biggest improvement was that second Triple G fight, where he decided to come forward and figured out that he could move forward, avoid some punches, and still score, instead of playing the boxer that he played in the first fight. And I think right now, I think he's at the prime of his career, where he understands his tools, and he understands what works best for him and his abilities. And Plant, unlike Canelo, has had an extensive amateur career, but I don't think that style really translates into being a great professional boxer. And one of the things that I kind of compare it to is the great boxing school that the Cubans have, arguably some of the best boxers in the world, but they don't do well in the pros, and a lot of it has to do with it's just different, right? You can have a great amateur that does it.
I'm not sure if we lost Rafael there. I'll wait a few moments to see if he comes back. But if not, look, great live today. It wasn't too busy. We had some really diehard boxing fans in here tonight, having a really great conversation, and it's a good thing to see and good thing to be a part of here, breaking down these fights. We're going to continue to talk about these fights as they continue to creep closer. Like I said, I have a lot of content ready and planned for you guys. Canelo and Plant is definitely the next on the list, dropping some insightful, stylistic breakdowns of that fight. And I think it will be nice and refreshing for you guys to see. Instead of just talking about it, actually break it down for you guys on how I see that fight happening. So for those of you who stayed up late to listen to Divine Sense Boxing, I appreciate every single one of you. And just make sure that you hit that like button before you get up out of here. And if you would like to be an official member of the channel and gain some really cool perks, I'm actually going to develop some more emojis, custom emojis. I already have a Caleb Plant emoji, and I'm going to be making more here soon, and also making some more exclusive videos that will be available for channel members only. So if you would like to be a part of that and continue to support the channel. The link is pinned up at the top. Just click that link. And for $2.99, you can gain those perks and support the channel. I appreciate every single one of you guys. I'll be back soon. Y'all stay up, be safe, be strong, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.